Radio check, radio check, radio check. This is the Explorers Pod over.
4, 3, 2, 1. Welcome. Thanks for doing this, guys. I'm very, very appreciative. How are ya?
We were very well. We become 4 people in December, so
in a month's time.
Wow.
Not us 3, it's us 4 now.
Really? That's amazing. Wow. Far out. Congratulations.
So, but to answer your question, Todd, we super well, man. We like everybody, I think, just didn't enjoy lockdown. South Africa had probably one of the hardest lockdowns, I think, anywhere. You know, we had everything banned, and you couldn't move out of your house. You couldn't buy some things like which weren't essential. Cigarettes and alcohol were banned, and people couldn't move out of their houses. We had roadblocks stopping people from going places. So we had a severe lockdown. So, I mean, we've done like everybody else around the world. Yeah, man, we just haven't enjoyed it.
Yeah, I hear you, brother. You know, we've had a very severe lockdown here as well. We've really been in lockdown for more than 240 days now. And we were actually at a time where we were not allowed to leave our houses or go to the bank or go shopping. In fact, they made it a requirement. If we actually had to go to the bank for an emergency, an official had to come to our house and take our bank card and take our PIN number.
That's crazy.
You know,
no ways.
That was a little too much for me. Luckily, we had a little money stashed.
Yeah, it was very, very difficult time. So only here in Coron, I think, in the Philippines that we have heard about that.
Yeah, crazy. But so there's some positive news on the horizon. We've got somewhere around December 1st, they're saying they're going to open up our borders domestically. You know, we're an island nation, so we can't actually travel, go into Manila, do any sort of medical stuff until December 1st. And, you know, domestic tourism, so we'll open up on the 1st. So that's positive for us. Maybe we can start to earn a little income here in some of the things that we do. So it's positive.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So, Janet?
Luckily, our borders opened last night. They said, yeah. So I don't know. We don't have any plans to go anywhere.
You're just so used to the lockdown.
Where do you go?
Like,
You just go somewhere else and get locked down, you know? So, or you have to go there and get quarantined for a few days.
Well, Riaan and Basti, welcome. It's so great to have you guys on board. Thank you for gracing our show. It's really nice to see you again. And to start with, can you tell us and our audience a little bit about yourself and your background?
Well, myself, I studied human resource. I got I guess caught up by accident in this business of exploration. I had wanted to 20 years ago change my life, and Fusty was my girlfriend of about a year and a half at the time. So shame, here I am telling her that I'm going away and I'm going to get on a bicycle and try and circumnavigate the continent of Africa. If you guys know how big our continent is, it's monstrous. It's huge. I mean, for a person to say they're going to circumnavigate it is just a little bit of a pipe dream. And I managed to do that in 2003, 4, and 5. And then I got back, and then Fusty was patient enough to wait for me. And then I just did a few journeys after that. I circumnavigated Madagascar on a kayak. After that, another journey. Madagascar took me 1 year, so I was also away from Fusty again, being very patient. Although she got to travel to Madagascar a few times, which you loved.
No, it's just wonderful, yeah.
Yeah, so she came to see me for a day or two along that route. And then the circumnavigation of Iceland was a super tough one. It was just, you know, out of the cliche comfort zone of just an African who knows the heat and can manage just Africa. And so it sort of was like my career was getting more serious then, you know, 10 years into it, and, you know, another world first, you know, all these journeys, I was always looking like, how do I do journeys that no human beings have done? So I did Iceland, and then I roped Fusty into joining me in rowing across oceans, which she'll just take up and tell you about.
Oh.
Yeah, because I'm actually a lawyer or an advocate. I don't know what system you guys use in the Philippines, but yeah, I'm a lawyer in South Africa and I love my job. And I think
Must be the
worst
world.
honeymoon ever. So just Todd, sorry to
That's what it sounds
just
like.
the worst honeymoon ever.
Yeah, the most romantic honeymoon ever.
The longest.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, that said, we'd like to play a quick visual clip for our audience.
This is just a quick
Yeah,
visual
just very quick.
on the Africa stint. But anyway, Maddie, could you pull up clip 1, please?
Getting married, having children, putting some money in the bank for your pension, that maybe wasn't sitting comfortably with me. And it was a 20-second decision that I made sitting in the beautiful Newlands Forest in Cape Town and saying, jump on a bicycle, try get around this continent of Africa no matter what, and if you get back, see what life offers you.
I'm Riaan Manser, explorer, author, public speaker. This is my story.
There is an ocean between saying and doing.
Okay, so let's get stuck into Africa. We've got some questions about Africa. So, Riaan, I have to wonder, when I've looked at a lot of things you've done, I'm really, really impressed with all your firsts and all the things that you do. It's very inspiring, and there's a lot of things that I get as well, a lot of wisdom and takeaways that you've brought back from your journeys. So cool. But I'm curious, like, were you always driven? Like, how did it all start? What was your childhood like? Was it something you learned along the way, or have you always been like this?
Yeah, no, listen, I grew up in the northeastern part of South Africa, the coastal area, which is not as built up as it is today. At the time, it wasn't. It was a town that we lived on the ocean. We cycled around from village to village. But, I guess just I think I was the same impatient person about this life that we all expected to follow. And I'm not saying that it's this, we're boxed into a place, but in the modern world, we have to pay bills. If we want comforts, we have to pay for them. We have to go work for them. And that's just something that a lot of people sit uncomfortably with. I don't sit uncomfortably with a modern capitalistic world. I understand this giving and taking in a commercial space. But for me, I just felt that shouldn't be the focus. And that was in 2000, where I thought, you've changed my life. Do I think that something in my upbringing and in my youth had something to do with me wanting to overperform? Maybe compensate. I don't know. I mean, that's a big psychological insight. I think people take years to work out. But I personally just think, I didn't have a traditional family space. I didn't grow up with a mother and a father. I didn't have the luxuries of this comfort and this ability to be able to fall back on others, fall back on a father or mother in any way, not even in a not just a financial way, but also just in a spiritual way. So I think my bicycle trip around Africa, Todd, in essence, just is what you touch on, and the tenacity it took to not give in. I mean, after being held by the rebels, being captured by Al-Qaeda, so many dangerous scenarios that I was in, I never, ever considered turning around because I would have been too embarrassed. And that, I think, was definitely something to do with my upbringing and my childhood. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, amazing. So I didn't know that about your childhood. It's very interesting. One of the things that, we're just starting out our podcast, and you're our third guest, and thank you very much again. But, it's interesting. All the people that we've been interviewing sort of follow that same theme. There is something in the beginning at that sort of start of life. We find that they're getting into their corporate jobs or just to sort of exploring that world. But it seems to me now, out of our first 3 interviews, they all have that same takeaway: is that they're not quite comfortable with where they're going. They're not feeling that they're being fulfilled with their passion in life. So that's interesting, I think, as well. Also, so this journey around Africa, it's a first, and has it been repeated?
No, it hasn't, which I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, because nobody's bringing as much attention. Some people have attempted it, so which is pretty cool. And obviously you sit there with any type of record and you say, is this possible? I think, of course, somebody will do it. One day it's going to be possible. I think the timing, but also just the willingness for people to, sure, man, Africa's a monstrous place with very, very differing countries. You leave one border and, different type of space. I mean, politically and physically, I think just the cultures are very different as well. But listen, I think all records are there to be broken, so I think somebody's going to be able to do it. A woman attempted it as well, I think about 8 years ago, and then she made it to Angola, which is about 5,000 kilometers, about 3,000 miles into the journey, which isn't too bad, but then it just became too dangerous for her. So, Todd, it's amazing, man. Don't you, when you said that now, isn't it amazing that still in this world of 2020, some things, I think credible things, are still able to be done in this exploration space?
Yeah, I do. I think that is. There's still a lot of stuff to be done for sure. And when I was younger, I said, it's all been done. I wasn't quite sure if there was anything out there left, but there is a lot to do.
There is. There's so much more.
Now and then when my wife, when Fusty moves away, please, man, we've got a little 3-year-old, and if you guys know 3-year-olds, they do not sit still. So we've got him, we're feeding him fish fingers and watching some iPad. So we're hoping that combination will work.
If there is somebody who understands, it is us. So our little angel is sleeping right now. So
but we've got a babysitter kind of sitting by the bed if anything sort of goes awry.
Yeah, a babysitter is.
It's really our crux move: is how are we going to work around all that, and still do these things.
Anyway. Okay, during the video, Riaan, you said it took you 20 seconds to decide to jump on your bike and cycle around the whole of Africa. How come you chose biking and not other adventures? Was there a special reason behind it?
It was actually quite clear. It was a Tuesday morning and I was busy looking at this big map of the world out. And so obviously, with the Greenwich running through the middle of this big earth map, and I was looking everywhere else on this map. I knew I had to do something extraordinary in travel, but I still didn't know what it meant. And I kept going to the traditionals, going to the North Pole, South Pole, climbing Everest, or, the traditional things.
Yeah.
And I was looking at Siberia, and then this feeling just came over me, and this is where the 20 seconds started. And I said, no ways, man. What am I really doing, trying to achieve something in a space that is not my own backyard and not about me? My history, my culture, my ancestry is from here. Do something on the African continent. And then it was just this moment of looking at the continent, pointing at Cape Town and going with my finger slowly around the edge of Africa, and then just imagining, can it be done? And then my mind went through the 3 things. It went, can I walk it? And I thought that was too lame. I thought, walking, and it would take too long. And then I thought swimming. I said, no chance, man. I don't really enjoy swimming that much. And I thought, hey, the option that is still slow enough but quick enough would be a bicycle.
Cool. Well, I bet Carl Bushby would be in for the walking journey.
Yes, you would. So, how extensive was your planning with this circumnavigation?
Yeah, the bicycle circumnavigation actually started with no funding. So I had a little bit of money in the bank. I got Fusty out of her residence, in university, to actually come and live in my house when I had left, so she could pay rent. So we convinced her parents to rent a room in my house and help me pay the rent. So
Smart move.
listen, I just had to be a wheeler and a dealer in some way, even if it meant my girlfriend was paying rent in my house. So, no, but seriously though, I didn't plan on much. I didn't even carry money with me as I left Fusty, and then that last day when they said goodbye to me, they tried to follow me up the coast for about 100 kilometers, and then when they said goodbye, I didn't have a cent in my pocket because it wasn't a concern. But I budgeted, in my Africa book, I think I said I budgeted $2 to $3 per day camping alongside the road wherever I landed that evening. So budget was never really an issue. I tell you, probably, Janet, one thing which you touch on now, and it's the biggest lesson. I get many mails from people who say, how can I start a grand journey like yours? Where do I go for sponsors? And Fusty remembers that night before, I packed the bicycle for the first time, only because I could get those panniers the day before. I didn't have all the gear ready for me, but I told people I'm leaving on the 9th of September. I started that day without the finance in place, without all the things in place that you would believe have to be done, and especially finance. So the visas weren't even done, like Fusty mentions now. I just couldn't get visas. African visas are difficult to get, and all the embassies have made it difficult for me, even though we had a South African passport. So, yeah, it wasn't easy with finance at all.
Oh, it's not always easy.
So I'm starting to get a little bit of an understanding about your creativity on how you got sponsorship, if you can talk Vasti's parents into renting your room. So that's probably where it all started. So
I think Fusty actually spoke them into it, I think, if I was right.
Just right. If you stay somewhere, you have to pay some rent.
Very supportive.
So I want to touch base on this baby, your book, Around Africa. Thank you very much for this, by the way. What a lovely, lovely book, well written. And I honestly want to say that, experience is one of the great teachers in life. And when I've read through your book here, one of the things that I got was there's a lot of great perspectives in this book. I found that it was sort of like like Siddhartha by Hermann Hesse on a journey through life. It was a lot of life lessons learned here. So that's one thing I can recommend to people who read this book. There's a lot of lessons learned when you read this book. So thank you for that. That's for sure. My question is, as you pedaled around Africa, you came to these situations. All these things were quite different than your comfort zone back home. When you finished looking back, did you find that Africa had changed you?
Without a doubt. I mean, Fusty says I came back a different person. Thank you for saying that the book was about those experiences. I had experiences that weren't just daily, they were probably hourly, people that I'd bump into and people that I'd meet. I think my personality is also open. I find that it's probably a common thread that runs with many an explorer, and a successful explorer, is that you have to be willing, not just by verbally announcing that you enjoy people, you actually physically have to be as well. So comfort was never an issue, and those lessons sometimes came in the most difficult of places, as you've read in the book, and times when I was at my lowest. But the writing the book, and for me to be able to actually go through those experiences again,
right,
just reiterated what the journey did for me, Todd. I didn't understand something about my journey until I had the scene interview. It was a live interview. It was quite a lengthy one. It was I was sitting in studios in Johannesburg, so you can imagine I've got the earpiece in, and then the guy was ending the interview by saying, Riaan, in your 2 years, 2 months and 15 days, what was the one lesson that you can tell us you took away from that entire journey? And first of all, I was caught off guard. I mean, Todd, I really thought, gee, that's an unfair question. You couldn't ask something like this. And then I answered him just off the cuff, and I realized what it was, man. It was, for the 2 years, 2 months and 15 days, and this is a global thing, not just a South African thing.
Yep.
We reach forward and we shake somebody's hand, and subconsciously, for an untrained person, you reach forward and you shake hands with somebody, and your brain automatically registers that you're white, they're black, you're English speaking, they're French speaking, you're a Christian, they're Muslim.
Yeah.
You register that, and your brain does
Sure.
register it no matter who you are in the world. And I just realized more and more people that I was meeting was that is the unintelligent approach. The intelligent approach is if you just let your brain settle into the hundreds of things I actually have in common with the guy's hand whom I'm shaking. And the realization of that in that 60 seconds to explain it to this guy was an eye opener for me. That's where I really changed. This world is full of people who want exactly the same thing.
Yeah, that's right. We all want to feed our children, take care of our households, and love the people around us and feel happy. That's for sure.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's great stuff. So there's another thing that I also noticed is that, you never let pessimism sort of get in your way. It's something like pessimism's a bit devilish for you, and optimism sort of your total mindset. It's the intrinsic asset behind your successful outcomes, I find. So, you've been through so much. You've come to a place in life sometimes where you've nearly died a few times. You've been at sea, you and Vast, you've been at sea where you got to a place where you folks didn't talk to each other for 3.5 days. Really, you've been pushed into places. Most people, they're just so far out of their comfort zone. My question is, how do you keep that positive life, man, in your darkest hour?
Yeah, I think I'll take that one first.
No, you can take that one because I'm not like that at all. It's just Riaan. I don't know where he gets that positivity from because, we've been in situations where there's nothing to be positive about. And then he'll still think, oh no, there's a plan. We can get out of this.
I mean, it was the TV show, which was a toss-up between that actor and me for the MacGyver show. So I was more real life. Listen, the bottom line was that I can, in hindsight now, tell you, Todd, that I really believe people's past shapes them, and the pain and the suffering that you go through. I was a foster child that was never ever wanted by a family, and that rejection was something that I absolutely had to try and deal with as a teenager and a person growing up. But it wasn't something that sat comfortably with me.
Sure.
It really, really, really hurt me, and it was. I know growing up, I know that pain sometimes that I felt that I couldn't explain to others because they wouldn't know. But it molded exactly who I am, because when there was anything to be had in me growing up, there wasn't a pity Olympics, man. I didn't have a pity Olympics like people want to just sprout forth all the time about their pain, their suffering, because there's somebody next to you, somebody across the table from you that probably has that worse. So
Sure.
when Fusty says I'm positive, it's just man, it's you grow into that space. People don't realize the gifts they were given because of the suffering that they've had before. You only realize that with time. And I think right now, I can say I'm grateful for my upbringing. I'm really grateful for it.
Wow.
Yeah, I get it.
Very well said. Yes. It's really great that we're getting to know you as well. Both of you know slowly, and it's really great to hear your story.
It's cool to be here.
Warming up. So anyway,
Sorry.
back to your planning. Obviously, you knew there were dangerous places that you're gonna go into, cycling around Africa. What were your contingency plans in handling these events? Did you have any plans at all?
Yeah, I mean, I look at some of the places you go and you're going, God,
Yes.
this is a war zone. This is a civil
Hot
war
spots.
here. Yeah, how did you go through that? How did you plan for something like that?
Yeah, you guys touch on something that I think is relevant. I think the thing that I also battled with before I left on that bicycle trip, Fusty remembers the one interview. It was a Saturday morning breakfast show on one of South Africa's famous talk shows, and it was well listened to and with a famous DJ. And I remember when I'd finished with her, it was a short interview, 20 minutes, 25 minutes, and then I said to Fusty afterwards, I felt it as if that DJ was mocking me, because she was asking questions which I probably didn't have very good answers to. And I just realized that naivety that bothered me at the time. Janet, what you mentioned now is why did I go to those places? Not because I knew how dangerous they were. It was a combination of me being stubborn and determined, if you could combine those two characteristics, and then also matching that with a solid dose of naivety. Just a good old-fashioned naivety, not really knowing what the Liberian War is about. Remember 7-8 years after I was captured by the model rebel group in Liberia, that's the time they only made the movie called Blood Diamond.
Right.
That's when people sort of saw an idea of what was going on in there. I was oblivious to it, man. I'd seen on CNN and BBC of children and children soldiers and people suffering and amputees and the war in Angola. And to me, it was just flicking the channel. I'm not saying I was heartless, but we've all done it. You flick the channel to the 8 o'clock movie.
Is that real?
Yeah.
Life goes on for you in your little first world space.
Yes. Wow. So anyway, since you were the first human being to bike around Africa, in general, were the people receptive of you, or they welcome you with open arms, or did you have a hard time explaining to them what you were doing?
You can go to the best shop in the world. I don't know what you guys in London, they call it like the Waitrose or a Sainsbury's, and you can still grab a bag of apples. But you leave that bag of apples on your counter for long enough, one of those apples will go bad. In every single place in the world, no matter where it is, if you can only see the angelic faces around you, there is a bad apple somewhere. Unfortunately, that's just the effect of life. I am glad that I got away. I still remember, even with the Liberian situation, I still got away there. And I remember it was a week or two afterwards, my feelings were poor children. They were all like 13 to 19 years old. And I remember feeling pity, saying, these kids have got no future, nothing. They absolutely do not have a future. It was pity I was feeling for them. The guys that had in Libya, it was pretty tough on me because they didn't want foreigners and also people, I think infidels, which they had considered any foreigner, British or an American guy. I remember the war was going on, I think in Afghanistan at the time, and they had started doing beheadings, the Al-Qaeda. And I remember feeling that this is going to happen to me if I'm not careful. I have to hide away in that desert as I was hitting this road that was going from west to east of Libya. And I remember the one day I was busy cycling and a car came past me. They turned around, they drove slowly past. They went a few kilometers away. Then they came past me again, but very fast, and threw a bag of dates. Now, I love dates, but not if somebody's taking this bag of dates and throwing it into my body. I'm traveling at 100 kilometers an hour.
Oh, my God. Lucky it didn't break your ribs.
I did stop and pick up the dates. And then that country, Al-Qaeda, tried to capture me twice in Algeria as well. But the point I want to make, sorry to labor the point, was that soon the only country that I absolutely had reservations of trying to step out of and move to the next one was Algeria. It was my favorite place. And I can tell you it was difficult for me in that space. But if you ask Fasti, she knows the only country I regretted leaving was Algeria. It's an incredible place with people, but it was difficult in some places. And again, that naivety of not knowing what those situations were was probably my saving grace. Your question went to, are they friendly? Were the people friendly? Without a doubt, Janet, there is such incredible humility, if you could call it that. I don't want to say that us African people are just more welcoming than anywhere else in the world, but there is a spirit that flows from north to south that saved me when I didn't have money, saved me when I didn't have water. I mean, I saw old people share their last food or their dinner with me when I just stopped alongside them on the road in the middle of nowhere. The generosity was mind-boggling, man.
Right.
Wow, that's really great to hear.
So, Vasti, you, I presume, were there the whole way in support, in spirit. And you knew he was going into these dangerous places, I'm sure. And probably the further he got on his journey, the more information, the more knowledge you had as well. And I'm presuming more fear. How did you communicate with Riaan about these, about your fears, and how did you feel about some of these places he was going?
Todd, just like Riaan said, we were so naive. I often ask Riaan now, will he do it again? And he says, definitely no, because now you know what could have happened to you.
Sure.
You know what actually lay ahead. So I think that naivety was actually, you do have to have some naivety when you take on a journey like that, or actually any journey otherwise, because you'll talk yourself out of doing stuff if you're thinking, oh, but this can happen to me, oh, this is very dangerous. So we were naive. I could speak to Riaan probably about bi-weekly or sometimes every week, or he could send a quick email when he got to an internet cafe. You know, there was no social media.
There was still internet cafes at that time. Can you imagine? To find a cyber cafe
in Africa.
And I had to go to an internet cafe to get his emails.
Yeah, I remember that.
Like that.
Hard work.
Yeah, so, and about a week after he got captured by the rebels in Liberia, I only found out about it. And it was actually such a relief for me that it happened already, because I would have gone out of my mind to stress and worry about him all the time. But I remember there was a time in my trip when I spoke to my mom, and we are Christians.
We're Christians. Start there.
And she said that all that we can do is just trust in God, because it's not in our hands. And from there on, I think this whole trip, or Riaan's journey, became easier because it wasn't in my hands. We couldn't do anything about it.
Your mom sounds like my mom.
All moms.
I've been talking to her the last few weeks about what's going on with coronavirus and lockdowns, and that's what she keeps telling me. All we can do is pray. I was telling you, I was having a conversation with another South African, Mike Horn. Do you know Mike?
Yeah. I don't know him personally, but I know of him, yes.
Anyway, we met. I was sailing through the Andaman Islands. He was on his boat, Pangaea, and we got to know each other a little bit. But he was telling me a story when he was in Africa, and I think he was in Special Forces, and he got captured as well. And they put him on a firing line. And what happened was they pulled the trigger, and everybody in the firing line was killed except him. They didn't kill him. They left him standing. It really profoundly affected him. It changed his life, he said, for the rest of his life. He said that he took on every day as if it was his last. And you can look at his history. He's got a pretty powerful history. He really has went out and done some amazing things. And I'm thinking about you in Liberia, and when I read that stuff about Liberia, it sounds like that you were really put into that same position where you probably thought you weren't going to get up the next day. My question is, did you find that incident changed you, that facing death? If so, how did it change you, and do you live life differently?
Yeah, it was definitely life-changing. I think it was the 26th of February 2004, and I had started the early morning ride with gusto, man. I thought, I wasn't saying it out loud. It was probably a little voice in the back of my mind saying, hey, this is not as bad. I mean, I'd encountered nothing. I'd gone past lots of military, had a couple of the villages, kids chasing me. I thought it was only their children. I didn't know that only that eastern part of Liberia was still in this model rebel group's control. I didn't know until these guys had tackled me off the bicycle, and probably how this 8 hours just unraveled itself. It started to sink in. It is as clear as daylight, me sitting against the wall for the first few hours, covering my knees against these thick clay walls while the guys were ransacking the bicycle, and they were just trying to dig for stuff that they could take off. And I remember still thinking over there, this is pretty surreal, but I'm sure that nothing is going to happen. I'm sure these kids don't want to kill me, because I didn't see any adults. Mm-hmm. And my mind hadn't gone to a dark place of thinking, what now, until they had decided after a few hours to take me to this prison cell. They called it their prison cell. It was like a dungeon, sunken or cut into the clay, thick walls, and then small little windows with like bars across them. And it was, again, packing out my bicycle, but properly now, opening the panniers and just giving them everything I had on the bicycle.
Yeah.
And it was only until like a group, they were super drugged up, and I couldn't communicate with anybody.
Wow.
It's about 15, 20 of them sitting across from me in this elongated room. And only when the one group on the left-hand side started chattering among themselves loudly saying, let's gut him, let's kill him, we are wasting time,
Wow.
that I realized, wow, this is not even in my control. It's not even as if I'm have a half an ounce of getting out of it in any way. And then my knees were starting to shake.
Yeah.
I really believed, and I was imagining of how this stabbing was going to take place, because they were so agitated. They were infuriated. There was just a rustling each other up type of vibe, which I was not in control of. And the leader was sitting on my right hand side, and he was quiet and just not engaging, but he was looking through some documents, especially that I had, some magazines and letters from embassies that I'd passed through before. And it was that moment where you speak of now, where the realization came. That's where I said to myself, wow, wow, wow. People talk about not seeing the sun come up tomorrow. I realized it is entirely out of my control. I will get stabbed to death today. The guys with the older guys with the guns on the right-hand side, I always joke and say they didn't have bullets, but they weren't the ones who were just trying to put that in my face. I think they knew it was intimidating enough. But the younger guys with those big Rambo knives were the ones that I just knew were just going to get triggered by something. And so 26th of February, I remember resigning the fact, and I remember with a sort of an argument prayer with God, I was just saying, this is crazy, God. I mean, you talk about putting us on earth and we're having purpose, and here I am, and I'm really trying to do something exceptional with my life and the path I've walked, and this is where I land up. I said, come on, this is a joke. This is ridiculous. So I was a bit angry. And then, then I remember saying, listen, let me get out of this room and I will finish this journey no matter what. And it was, sure, man, a luck that this guy, which I still believe was the leader, he found this magazine. It was a Time magazine with our president at the time, Thabo Mbeki, on the cover. It was soon after he had done this the UN African Renaissance, I Am an African speech. And the guy looked at Mr. Mbeki and he said to me, for the first time speaking now, this is his friend. I should have thought a bit more intelligently to say, listen, okay, buddy, listen, I know this guy is your friend. Let you and me make a connection here. I chose the latter, rather to say to him, there's no way that you could be friends with my president because he's never, ever been here. And that didn't help either. So, man, I remember standing next to him and he was screaming at me and my knees were still shaking. And that's when I also just had given up the last chance that, I'm getting out of here. He did like me, actually. It landed up that this guy, I moved back to my bicycle, and then it was about 15, 20 minutes later, just out of the blue, he said, go before we kill you. I didn't ask him if he was sure about that decision, and I pushed my bicycle out of these two little doorways that I had to get out of this clay building and onto the road. And like you say, there was at least a look back in hindsight and realizing what I had gone through. But the worst thing was that I'd resigned to the fact that my life was over on the 26th of February 2004. That's scary. So it's probably, as Fusty would tell you later, is that my biggest dream has been to have a family and to have children. Yeah. And it's probably one of the things that I've been working to be able to be that father that they can respect and like, but also be the father that can put food on the table.
Yeah, little boy.
So, Riaan, if you were to cycle Africa again, how would you do it this time, or would you do it differently? And what are some of the advices that you would tell people who want to try it?
Yeah, listen, pack your bicycle and come to our continent. There's so many routes. I mean, it's not as if you are stuck for routes. I mean, the continent's so huge, so you would spend years, literally years. You wouldn't spend months here. You would spend years just exploring. I could take you to Malawi, which is one of my favorite countries in Central Africa, in the central part of Africa, landlocked alongside a lake. I could get you to explore that for 4 or 5 months, and cycling quite long distances. So firstly, I would say, please just get your bicycles, put them on a plane and get here. All the people that you speak to that have come to our continent and done some journeys here, all wax lyrical about just how incredible it was. Some have had bad luck. Some have had bad luck anywhere else in the world. So to answer two questions that you asked, would I do that journey again or how would I do it? I will never, ever, ever do the journey that I did and the route that I took ever again. There's just no way. That's for somebody else to attempt. I think our continent does have a problem with leadership, which leads to division and tribalism and eventually just a conflict. And it's not wise for a foreigner who maybe is not as astute to or attuned to what our continent's problems are, for them to just do it on a whim. So no, I think what I would do, if you asked me where would I cycle, I would take my little son now. I would take Fusty when the new one comes, and we'd put those bike racks at the back of the bicycle, and we'd cycle from Cape Town, beautiful, beautiful, incredible Cape Town, up north all the way to the pyramids in Egypt.
Well, I think you just answered Janet's last question, but I won't go into that. Yeah, we'll cover that later.
But anyway, thanks for the advice. So that'll be the next bucket list.
Sure, we're in for that.
For her family.
So, Vasti, I'm curious. So, after he finishes his Africa trip, he was home. I'm looking at the date lines here, and it looks like he was home for about a year. And during that year, what the heck happened? How did you let him go off to Madagascar? He's only been home for a year. I mean, the guy's spending more time out of the house than in the house.
I was so happy that he was back, and it wasn't a year. It was a little bit more, because he came back in 2005, and I think in 2008 he did Madagascar again. So that was probably about, it's like over 2.5 years. But I saw how it changed Riaan. I saw what that journey did to him, how it changes a person, how much more confident he was, how he didn't sweat the small things, that we do every day in our lives. And for him to plan another journey to kayak around Madagascar, it was actually inevitable. I should have seen it a long time ago, and I didn't ever say, no, don't do it, because I could see that was in his blood, that he had to do things like that, and he loved it. And I never, ever said, no, don't go. I always supported him in what his next journey would be.
You guys got a great relationship. I know we go through our stuff, but you guys have been through some really hard stuff as well, and those things, but have worked out your ways that you can both work together quite well. Very proud to know you both.
So she doesn't tell you the truth. She tells you all the romantic stuff now.
Is that the Vasti version? And now we'll go to Riaan version.
What she tells people about my Madagascar trip is that she says, Riaan, tell them the truth. It was a glorified fishing trip. Remember, I paddled around that massive place, the world's 4th largest island. It's a chunk of earth, eh? And Fusty says, bottom line, glorified fishing trip. The most photos I took was with me and the fish, eh? Selfies, me and the fish, me and the fish. But it was special. But Fusty also took a bit of guts. I think one of our negotiations, and Fusty will remember that, we sat down and we said, okay, I'll get some money together to do the journey. And I said, I don't need money for the kayak or money for the food or money for this. She said, we need money that I can come visit. Even if I fly in for one day, fly out another day. I'm not leaving you alone for another year.
Oh, yeah. Wow. I get that.
Way to go, Vasti.
Yeah. So, hey, I'm going to pull up another clip here. This is want to give a little picture of your kayaking trip in Madagascar. Can you pull up clip 2?
I'm going to be the first person to circumnavigate Madagascar on a kayak, alone and unaided.
5,000 kilometers of dramatic coastline lie ahead of me. That's 9 months worth of paddling, 20,000 strokes a day.
I'm not having fun. Yes.
It's going to be the hardest thing I've ever done, and there's no guarantee I'll succeed.
My kayak's just stuck up.
All right.
It was a lot of fun. A lot of fun.
Yeah, it looks like it was. I really dig that. I've been watching a few clips from the Madagascar Maverick, or the Maverick from Madagascar. I'm not quite sure what it is, but some great stuff in that film. So I'm curious about Madagascar. How did you come up with this plan? How did you switch? I mean, it's not too long afterwards. Where did it start? Where did this start? Where did you put your boat in the water? Which direction did you go around Madagascar? And where did you finish? Give us a quick brief on that.
Yeah, listen, the idea to go around Madagascar was just because of the influence of those awesome documentaries that they made. Those 3 documentaries. They were Madagascar. What were they called? I joke. They were cartoons, so they weren't really the inspiration.
It's called Madagascar.
Is it called Madagascar? So I just had felt that Africa was Gondwana land originally and had been a part of Africa. And I just felt, it's a piece of earth that I'd need to explore. It's also so close to us and probably so exotic to the rest of the world. Why don't I do this? I also had known that some people had attempted to circumnavigate this island and they'd been unsuccessful, and some very, very, very skilled paddlers. So I think I took it on my shoulders that, listen, I want to, if I want to prove myself, do something that others have tried already and failed at. So I started in a town called Tamatave. It's in the middle of the East Coast. Probably a little bit harbor town. I think if you could describe it as that, not really the most picturesque or beautiful. And I planned first of all to had gone from Mahajanga, a town that was on the northwestern side. But here is the real story again. And I don't know, it probably is like one of the questions that Janet would ask is, how did I plan that or work it out? The thing is, I was sitting in a taxi. The driver had taken me into the little town. And on the way, I told him that this is what I'm planning on doing. I'm going to Mahajanga and I'm going to paddle anti-clockwise. And he said to me, hey, my boy, I don't think that's going to be possible. I was a pilot for 35 years in Air Madagascar, and the wind will never allow you have to paddle the other way. Excuse me. So when I got back to my little hotel room that night, I changed my entire plans and I went to Tamatave to start my journey properly and go, obviously, anti-clockwise.
So you went anti-clockwise, correct?
Yeah. So
okay, yeah.
I went anti-clockwise, so forgive me, I did the other way around. But I think I finished there 12 months later, so a year later, and about 5,500 kilometers.
Okay, so yeah, I've got a little bit more logistical. That was sort of the start of my logistical question. I want to pull up another visual for you. Maddie, can you pull up clip 3? Okay, so here we go. We got Madagascar. You've got the trade winds. They're rolling across the Indian Ocean. They're southeasterlies primarily. And they're coming all the way across the Indian Ocean, and it's pushing big swell. And the way I understand Madagascar is that coastline, the eastern coastline, it looks to me that there's a lot of steep cliffs and not a lot of protected bays. So I would presume that coastline, if you weren't going anti-clockwise, because it's a southeasterly primarily, that looks like a real hard coast. So what was the difficulties there? I presume that would be a hard coast to paddle.
Yeah, I can see now, obviously, excuse me, a real frog in the throat tonight. Listen, again, I had gone with just this bravado. And when I say bravado, I mean still some humility in that bravado. I said, listen, be careful. Make sure you double check weather, etc., whatever I could do. But it wasn't the days of just clicking your cell phone with cell phone towers, especially in a fourth world country like Madagascar, to be able to try and get a weather update and know what's blowing the next day. Todd, the worst thing were those landings. Can you imagine that I actually put it down to how I would manage the risk of Madagascar? And I believe the largest risk for me would be those 120, 150 landings I would have to do each evening. So I paddle. I spend a lot of time in the ocean, and I'm confident. But when the surf is 6 foot, 8 foot, 10 foot surf pounding on those rocky ledges, you can't survive them. I mean, the close calls that I had, my fingers that I could put into different positions for you now that got caught in my kayaks and surf, hooks that went through my body, all from landing on those rocky ledges. it was only by grace, man, that I kept my body intact. I think that northern pass heading up towards Diego Suarez, getting around the northerly point was
some big
it was
seas.
by far
Big seas.
yeah,
there.
it was monstrous seas. And I remember when you're meeting the Mozambican channel.
Right, you got two
it
currents
literally
colliding
forms a
there.
line.
Two currents collide. You got the trade winds rolling across there. It's probably really ugly some days, I'm sure. Yes.
I think, Todd, as you as a sailor and as a sailing family would know that it almost seems surreal that these two currents would form and actually create such a distinct barrier. I remember when I got past the northerly point, the two currents were hitting each other, and it was this white line in front of me that I paddled through. It was almost surreal. You couldn't believe it. I always believe geography below the water creates that, but this was those two currents. When I got around there, I remember saying to Fusty the night before I paddled there, she had visited in Diego, I think, or a week before. And I was obviously feeling a bit soft now because obviously I had chance to see Fusty and softened up a little bit. But I remember the night before actually heading for that northerly point, I just realized it could be my last day because I had so many close calls before when it came to landings. And I think I even cried myself to sleep that night. So I'm thinking, no, man, how am I going to do this? But man, you guys know, you get to the leeward side of the
you just made it. The trip's all downhill. Yeah, so I looked at that coastline. I was actually going to sail across the Indian Ocean, but by chance, my sail I was on my way to Madagascar, the Indian Ocean, and I was sailing across the Lombok Channel, and my sail got stuck up. It was stuck in the up position. I couldn't reef the sail. And I'm sailing engineless around the world. And if you can't reef your sail in the middle of the Indian Ocean, you got big problems. So I ended up sailing across the Lombok Channel, and I went to a little village called Ahmed, met a wonderful guy there, and life just changed, and my direction went another way, and I headed to Borneo. So I didn't go that direction. But I've always been fascinated with Madagascar. One of my questions is, how did you take the time away, and what did you do? You say you went there twice. When you guys went there, did you get some vacation time together? Did you go to explore some parks? Did you get to see the beauty of Madagascar? Did Riaan take some time out?
Oh, Madagascar is my favorite place on earth.
Nice.
I've been back there since about 6-7 times after he came back. And
oh, really? Nice.
Yeah, he actually asked me to marry him in Madagascar, so that's also a very special memory.
Yeah.
We like to travel, and we always like to go different places, and we try not to go to the same places again and again, but Madagascar is one place that I'll go again and again and again.
Excellent.
And I think the thing about Madagascar is that it's not just the beauty of it, but it's the raw beauty of it. There's no resort. There's some places that you can go, but it's not hotels and shopping malls. There's nothing like that there. The people are they are pure. You know, I don't know a different way to describe it, because not like they get influenced by, I don't know, media and stuff from outside. And that is, if you want a luxury holiday, you shouldn't go to Madagascar. If you want just raw earth holiday, go to Madagascar, because that's what you're going to get there.
Yeah, but we did try to take Fusty, Todd, on your questions. We did try when Fusty visited. I think probably over Christmas was the time that we spent. Like, I think she was there for a week, so it was a real splash out. It was the first Christmas I think we had ever spent together in 9 years. So
great.
Of being together. So it was special spending it in Madagascar as well. But like Fusty's right, you know, again, it's a hop across from South Africa or from Mozambique to the Madagascan island. But there's just so much from north to south to east to west of that island. You so perfectly described the one coast has got all these cliffs, huge surf and rocky coastline. And then the other side, especially the southwest, is this huge desert Fasti and I only explored more the eastern side and then some of the smaller islands like Saint Marie off there in the trips we did post my journey.
Okay.
So there's another side, another romantic side again, asking Vasti on Madagascar. That's so you, Riaan.
It was romantic.
Yeah,
it was very romantic.
Yeah.
I carried that ring around for like 7 months. And when I say I carried it around, I mean literally in my pocket. She didn't know I had it for 7 months in my pocket, waiting for the moment. So, I chose, but I was also getting a bit impatient. I wanted to marry Fasti, and I had to do it sometime.
I want to interject there. I know that story. I did the same thing.
He has his own story as well.
I carried that ring around in my pocket for months because we were actually doing this climbing it was an expedition that was funded to go back into the indigenous communities to climb the 7 highest mountains in the Philippines. And we were bringing solar power back into these indigenous villages. And I thought, okay, look, I'm going to ask her on top of the highest mountain in the Philippines. And we're off. We're going to do this trip. And at the last minute, it got canceled because of insurgency, some red spots. And so kept it in my pocket. And the next one I said, I'll ask her on top of the next mountain. We get hit with a typhoon right before we're at the summit. We get a typhoon. We get flooded out. And then the next time somehow I didn't have it in my pocket. So I just kept carrying this thing around, and finally I just got impatient. And but I know that story, man.
Well, he ended up asking in the beach, so. But it's romantic as well.
But I wonder if you also had like the opening line, like I made a joke about something, and then Fasti was sitting, and I remember I poured us like a little sundowner. We sat down on our little basic little cottage, and then I didn't have a special opening line like saying, "Hey Fasti, we've been together for so long, you mean so much to me." I made a joke. She started laughing, and she had her hands over her face, and then as she came back, I was already on my knee, and my opening words were, "All jokes aside." I mean, come on, geez. That's not that
All jokes aside, will you marry me?
And she starts laughing.
Oh my God. That is so cool. Well, okay. So, going back to your Madagascar expedition, Todd and I, we do expeditions as well, and we have slept in uncomfortable and crazy places on some of our expeditions. I would not really call it sleep, What were some of your what were some of your most uncomfortable nights?
So if we're talking about Madagascar now, it was probably the beach flies and the mosquitoes that got me. I would stop the kayak maybe normally when my alarm would go off at 3:20 every single day on the watch. That would be the signal that I can choose any time I wanted to land. I didn't have to do a certain number of kilometers then, because I allowed myself the luxury of working hard till 3:20. And then normally what I found is between that and sunset, if it was like 5 o'clock or so, I'd find the gap to land. But the worst thing is if I landed near sunset, I'd be pitching my tent. And when I say the mosquitoes would be sitting and covering my face, they'd be in my face, on my hands. I would not be able to manage it. And I couldn't get to especially in the kayak, you couldn't get to your things like your repellents, etc. And I would sometimes lay in that tent that I tried to put up in the strong winds. And you guys know when you say it's not sleep, it is torture on a level that you can't explain. So more psychological than anything else. And I even tried reverse psychology. I would say, listen, the mosquito bites, you can't feel them. They don't do anything to you. Nothing's going to happen. Just let them feed and let their tummies get full so that you can also have a good night's rest. But there were just too many mosquitoes in that tent and nobody's tummy got full.
That's the power of positivity, Riaan. There you go. So, how long did this journey take, and what were the 2 most challenging sections?
Yeah, it was 12 months, so almost to the day. I think we were 2 days short of a year out in Madagascar. And when I say I really put my head down, I did. The most challenging sections, I think, was that beginning part heading up towards the northern part of Madagascar. And then I think probably when things were falling apart, I'd been in prison 3-4 times, and the 5th time I was imprisoned again in a town called Tarik. It was right at the south of Madagascar. I was there at the time of the military coup, the violence that they hadn't seen in 30 years, and I was in a heck of a lot of danger. I mean, I'd been imprisoned the first 3 times just for a day, but the last 2 times, especially the 5th time, I was for 4 days, and that's just where my spirit went. Janet, it was actually all just to do about me feeling sorry for myself. You know, I've had to pull my tooth in Madagascar without any anesthetic, literally a rusted pliers and pulling my tooth. I've had hooks going through my hands also, where I had to force the hooks through the fingers with the fish still attached to my body. All of that happening in that last month, that was probably the most challenging. But we all know it. You guys, when you go on expeditions and you think the finish line is ahead of you, that's sometimes when you just get thrown those curveballs, when the sail stays up and you can't reef it, when you can't fix a part on your car. Definitely last month, I think Fusty even knows how in South Africa we say gatvol, which just means you've had enough. I've just had
I'm over it. Yeah.
I'm done.
Yeah, I'm over it. But I love Madagascar too. Janet, I didn't love it when I'd finished the journey. I still wanted to fly back as soon as possible back home because of the last imprisonment that was also just a bit traumatic. And I tell people who book me to come and speak at the events and their functions that if they knew how many times I've been in prison, there is no way they'd have me up on stage. There's no way me influencing their staff. So, but Madagascar now, Janet, it is by far, the way Fusty described it, those people are so pure, and it is the sad thing. When Fusty was saying it now, I just realized it can't happen. You know, it can't. I mean, it can't continue to happen. It's going to change. People are going to get satellite dishes. They're going to learn about the Donald Trumps and the political views of other people, and they're going to learn about corrupt people and the love of money and greed, and it's just sad, man. And when Fusty talks about that, I just hope that happens slowly in Madagascar.
So
Sounds such a lovely
I see
place.
another book here. So you've got 3 books now. I was thinking maybe My Life as a Criminal by Riaan Manser.
Inside of Prison Cells by Riaan Manser.
Yeah.
You can write the foreword, Todd. You've been in a couple of places.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'm not going to tell
He's
that
got
story
a lot
today.
of stories.
Yeah, when I was listening to you and Carl Bushby when we were in Dubai, that was one of the things I really got from you guys. Is like I wanted to, that was the first time I actually spoke in public. I was so nervous, but I had this big plan. I was going to step up on stage and really sort of bring out your guys' story about you guys were actually criminals. But I lost the courage. Yeah.
It was special to you guys in Dubai. To see you guys there and you sharing your story was just special for us as well. Left a huge impact on us.
Yeah, likewise. Your story has definitely impacted us, and that's one of the reasons we're here today. Is we felt that was a really great trip for us because it really put us around like-minded people, and we felt when we left, we wish we really would have got more time to get to know you guys and actually all the people that were there.
Such a short time, it's like...
And a great event. I think we need more events like this where, our kind of people come together to share their stories. I think there's a lot to be said about that. And that's why we got involved with this, is like we're reinventing ourselves now with the whole COVID thing, and we thought this is what we should do. Let's talk to these people. I'm grateful that you guys actually take the time to talk to us, but there's a lot that we can learn from each other, for sure.
Yeah, also, one thing that for me personally, that, I was very thankful is you also have a family traveling and doing all this stuff, and same with us, and we have our kids with us, and you had your kid, and we're just like you, and when your kid's crying, our kid's crying, it's just like, okay, we're not alone. We're all the same. It's like we're all having all this bad day sometimes, so we really felt some connection there. But yes, Todd and I just regretted that it's not just much time to connect and talk and sit down, and but here we are. We're, you know, you're on the other side of the world.
Right.
We're just
Second best
connecting.
thing. Second best thing. Here we are.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
you know, when you talk about that now, that event in Dubai just showed us how exotic people like us are who travel. You know, I think people were taken by us. I think the fact that we said it was the most incredible venue. I mean, firstly, I just think, you know, you'd battle to replicate that anywhere else. But I think just that opportunity in their schedule was, as the organizers, was to get the most out of us for them, not for us to get out of each other. And you could obviously see that. That's what we spoke about afterwards as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, agree.
But still, we're thankful that we got invited and we met you and other.
We want to do it again.
Yeah.
We want to see more
It's-
festivals like this every year.
Yeah.
We want to get together
True.
with more people like you, and I don't know how we're going to do it, but it's something we're thinking about.
Yeah.
We can babysit for each other.
Oh yeah, can't
Okay.
wait! Excited!
I'm
A whole
on.
nother adventure. Hey, I want to get back to Madagascar here. So Vasti and Riaan, you've both been there now many times. One of my questions is about, you know, it's not known for its food and water safety. How have you guys been over there? I hear a lot of stories from travelers that they get gastrointestinal and or stomach infections or a lot of problems with food and water over there. How did that go for you?
So for myself, I think just on my journey, you know, I think I cope quite well. I think I can eat anything, and you know, does nothing to my body. I've had the odd little thing here and there, but like especially on my Africa trip, I mean, imagine that. I mean,
Right.
people are just drinking out of wells and some polluted rivers. I probably presume rivers are just used as a part of, you know, people's daily lives, washing,
Yep.
cleaning, whatever they need to do. And I never ever used the tablets in the water, as you read in that Africa book. And I also didn't buy bottled water. It was just something I didn't do. And I only suffered like once or twice, but not that dramatically. I think in Madagascar, again, I just drank from where people drank from.
So you,
And I think first we now and then bought
you've
some bottled
really,
water.
I'm guessing
But
you,
Riaan is totally different from a normal person. He doesn't get sick. He can eat and drink anything he wants. And I don't know any one time that you actually had stomach problems for anything. So I think he set himself in Africa.
yeah, it sounds like
for
Africa,
life.
you probably built up immunity
Yeah.
over time
for sure.
with all those bacteria that you came across on that trip and have been building them ever since. A stronger man on every journey.
Yeah.
I could never get COVID. I probably couldn't get COVID. COVID's probably
Yeah.
avoiding me.
So, how's the cuisine in Madagascar? Do you guys have a favorite dish? Tell us about it.
Yes. They got these little, they call it brochettes, like, what's a society?
Yeah, bruschetta, yeah. Just a roll.
It's a
Oh, yeah, you're right.
a stick with meat on, and they fry it outside or they cook it outside on the fire. We ate mostly street food. We had so much fish. Oh, it's so good. And they've got this mango salad that they pickle,
Ah.
and that was so good. No, see, I love Madagascar cuisine, and we ate mostly street food. And when we went to
The local.
we had seafood platters. It's just great.
I mean, really, guys, Madagascar, if you guys ever get there and other people who watch this, also for them to get there, it probably is expensive to get there. I mean, compared to other flights. But once you get there, I mean, you could not live more like a king. I mean, Fasti knows exactly. I know where she's meaning when she's talking about those seafood platters. They're actually in Diego, hey?
Yeah.
Up there. So those seafood platters, we couldn't believe what they cost. And I mean, and what they had in them. And it was just so phenomenal. But I think Fasti and I, if we had to, and Janet, to your question, is that if we had to choose two cuisines that we love the most, I think Ethiopian food is one of them, and then definitely Malagasy food. Malagasy food, Fasti forgets now, we would not be able to walk past a little stand, a little shack that was on the side of the road on the way to the town or wherever we would go walking to stop for soup mis. Now, we don't know what that, what that
she
really means,
remembers
but
now.
so soup mis is like, I don't know, it's just a little bit of noodles and then that soup and then an egg and maybe a little bit of shavings of cheese
Chili.
and some chili.
Oh.
Oh no, we love the chili.
Ooh.
So we used to eat so much of that.
Nice.
Wow.
It makes me hungry. So, both Africa and Madagascar are different in size, but both are very underdeveloped countries. Did you find any distinguishable difference in the people or in the way you were accepted in the communities along the way? You want to?
Compared to Africa and Madagascar?
Yes.
Yeah, so sure, Janet, just the comparison, Madagascar is still, one nation where Africa's sitting with, dozens. And
Right.
I mean, in Africa, I'd go through one country to change into another, through a border post into another country, and it would be entirely different culture. Going from like a Togo into Benin, or from Ivory Coast from Ghana into Ivory Coast, you'd be changing absolute cultures. The vibe, the people, the military, the freedom of movement, the cuisine, everything would be so different. Madagascar, I think, when it comes to it being part of Africa, us as Africans, Madagascar is considered part of Africa, but they don't call themselves Africans. It's a weird thing. They want to be like independent, standalone, or we consider them purely Africans, but the people are very different looking when you can just think of Madagascar, north and south, east and west, and that's probably just because of the ancient trade routes. I think the Arab routes that passed up north, probably the northeast, and listen, a lot of pirates.
Yeah,
so
well, it's famous for pirates, was it? Ranter was a famous pirate there, Ranter Bay.
Yes.
And then you've got Santa Maria. Those islands on the northeast coast there is really famous for piracy. I've always wanted to go there and drink their rum. Yeah, it looks great. Cool.
So we went there, and so just when you think of the culture, so again, you speak about the piracy in like a Saint Marie and Ilonat, that area. The vibe with the people is more robust. They're more robust. They're in your face and they're talking. It has to be some descendancy and some influence.
Totally.
You can't just say it can't be. It has to be.
I've seen some videos from the people on those islands. They seem very happy, like really into... they formed some sort of economy over a long period of time. It seems different than Africa, for sure. I mean, when I look at some of the people...
Why is that?
Because they do the trade routes that came through there, and they were developed like piracy. The way I understand it, these pirates, it was the pirate capital. It wasn't the Pirates of the Caribbean. It was the Indian Ocean. That's where they were all at. They were on Madagascar.
So they were more exposed in with different cultures.
And a lot of money was rolling through there.
Okay.
And economy.
Very much so. Yeah. I think if you go to Saint Marie, you'll get a feeling of it. There's a little bay that I showed Fasti when we went there the first time to Saint Marie, where you would see where these guys, the pirates themselves, would anchor, or at least just keep their ships in a striking mode, and then that would be the area where the boats would come and seek refuge out of storms,
and they would
just wait for these ships to come in and just take them out with no prisoners. The one story also goes that one of the famous pirates in Madagascar from Saint Marie actually stole the emperor's wife, the Malagasy emperor's wife. So that also didn't make that pirate very popular.
No, I probably think they probably ended his career.
But the cultures, Janet, the cultures are very different. The beautiful thing about it is when you go there, you actually do realize that it is, the people are really, and I don't mean it derogatory in any way, fourth world. I actually am being very complimentary. How gifted and lucky the people are to be self-sustaining in a considered fourth world space. I was so jealous. On my bicycle trip, there was 2-3 times when I said I could get lost here and I could live with these people, and it never ever was the built-up places. It was always the leaning towards the people that were genuinely happy. Malagassies have that. Todd, you touched on it. They are happy people, hey?
Yeah. Yeah, so I was thinking about your book, and now I'm thinking about both of them right now. But anyway, your Africa book, I do remember you talking about some of those situations where you saw the difference between the two worlds. You talked about, sort of that third world. They have something that we want. I think this is what you said. They have something that we want, and they have something, or we have something that they want. But I can't remember how you put it, but you basically said that if you can have the other side, you lose your values as well. So it's an interesting dichotomy. I think there were so many takeaways in the book that I thought were so knowledgeable, and you just really put it right.
No, Todd, you're talking about, I think it was Sudan. It was just south of or north of Port Sudan in the Sudanese desert. And man, I'd stopped at this village, and these guys were, I mean, you can just imagine this. It was guys with swords strung to their backs. They've got these huge afros. I mean, but beautiful, stunning afros. All the guys are in great shape. They just hunt all day. And all they spoke about was lions that would come into their territories. Only one guy in the village spoke a bit of English. So he was relaying these stories to me about why they have the swords across their back. Then I had to eat fool with them, which is this beans mixture, squished beans that they do at the back of a Coke bottle in a pot. But these guys had left this fool in their pot for too long, and it was very rancid and sour. But I sat there and I ate it with them. And I remember saying to myself, and I think it's the point that you were mentioning, was I remember saying, and I wrote about this because it was a very strong point. I actually made a conscious decision. I said to myself, take out a photo, or take out your camera and take a photo of these people. This is so special. Mm-hmm. And then the two things stopped me. One, I was going to take away the moment that we had with the sitting around eating their rotten food together with them. And secondly, I was going to make these happy people see something that they felt they needed.
Right.
They saw this white guy come through here just showing these shiny things, and now they then in turn, now maybe I could have been wrong, but I felt that they would believe, what are they missing out? Do they need to go to the big city? Do they need to go and get these degrees and wrestle with everybody in the capitalistic world? I felt taking out my phone would have turned them and taken away their happiness.
Yeah, I think you told that well, a few parts in that book. I think that you really made some great points. And my question is, you wrote another book around Madagascar on my kayak. How is that compared to around Africa on my bicycle?
It's better. Go out and buy it. Come on, man.
Okay, that's what I wanted to hear.
No, listen, I really enjoyed. I still think if we have to come back to it, Fusty knows how I would write through the night for that Africa book. It was so special and cathartic for me to be able to look back again at where I was. And I don't want to talk down that my subsequent books weren't as great, but I know where I was in the writing space. You have to be enthusiastic if you're an author. You know, you have to sit down. Most authors don't get wealthy from penning a book that sells reasonably well. You've got to do something. You've got to do something else for a living. So it's not that was the point, but I would say Madagascar was a special book because it was a follow-on. And if you were a fan of this guy that just gave up everything and nearly his relationship and his future and his life, then decided to do something and follow on. Mr. Mandela, when he had met with me, when we walked away from each other, he looked back at me and he said to me, do not rest on your laurels. And I first of all thought, and first he was with me that day, and I thought it's an odd thing for Mr. Mandela to say to me.
Yeah.
And he was actually just meaning, stop being these, we see it every day. Go on social media and see people how they think they've achieved, they've arrived, they've done it. We never, ever arrive. We never, ever have achieved. You have to keep trying harder and harder. So what I like about my Madagascar journey, it was me showing commitment to that ideal, that I'm never going to rest on my laurels. I will keep continuing in this exploration space to make history.
All right. I want to sort of move a little bit forward. Let's move into your around Iceland with inspiration and your trip with Dan. And to sort of start this one off, this is sort of a very powerful scene. I saw this scene and it was moving for me. I really was touched by this. Can you pull up clip 4?
Bob. And then I practiced what I was going to say to him. I was going to say to Bob, and he wouldn't want to hear from me, and he would hear into my tone and all that. You can imagine. I was going to say to him, Dan's not coming home alive. Imagine that. I can tell you one thing, I wouldn't be sitting in this chair with you now. If Dan didn't come home alive with me, I wouldn't be doing any interviews. So there I was absorbing that responsibility, life on my shoulders that I'd blabbed about on radio and on TV, and for once I was realizing what it really meant. And I still said, what can you change over? You can't change the situation, but you can keep pedaling. I kept pedaling and kept pedaling. And then on the corner of my eye, about 90 degrees, I caught a glimpse of the yellow suit bopping up. And I thought, first of all, that I had imagined it. And I didn't even look in front of me. And I didn't care if the kite was going to go. And I just stared. And I just saw it bop up again. And Dan was just in the water with his arms up, like just floating. And he wasn't concerned. He wasn't shouting. He wasn't doing anything, just floating in the sea. And then I had to, okay, and the guys, you think it was over. It wasn't actually. I had to go past him. I had to choose a time. I've never done this. I had to go past him, trusting my instincts again, and go around him. Then once I've turned the nose now, again against the wind, there's no way I'm going to turn it back. I have to hedge my bets and say, Dan's over there, throw my legs over the side, put my pedal down, and just hope that the wind and the direction I've chosen is going to go just 30 centimeters past him so that he can catch onto the boat. And the boat hit him hard. And I know I was maybe slightly off, but the boat hit him very hard. He held onto the boat. And if you think I'm going to feel sorry ever in my life for how harshly I spoke to Dan, that moment, because we had trained so hard for him to never, ever, ever, ever let go of the boat, I'll never apologize in my life. Dan needed to understand what life and death meant. And I still don't know if he really understands, sort of what happened that day, but I definitely know that I do. And was I willing to give my life? I was, because I was going to keep on paddling until I died.
Wow. So
Cool.
I
haven't seen that for a very long time. Wow.
Yeah, I think there's a pretty powerful for me when I saw that, and I say, like, it's no joke some of the dangers that you've had to face along the way on your journeys. And when I saw that, from my perspective, I totally get it, because I've been at sea. I've got a lot of days at sea, and you're on a kayak. You're in that sort of sea condition. It's slim to none, after what I heard from your story, that you're ever going to find that guy. I mean, and thank God it happened, or it turned out the way it did. Very, very, very powerful. And I totally got that moment, and probably some of the feelings that you were going through. But I was wondering...
That was soon after it, Todd. So it was, it was fresh in my mind, and it was, I think there was some emotions also coming out of there, and having to explain it. It was so difficult. The fact that I've seen it now, I haven't spoken about that very often. I didn't enjoy that journey for 1 minute, because I absolutely did not enjoy the fact that I was paddling out every single day with the thought that this guy's life is in my hands, and I've got almost no control of it. I mean, I can try hard, but if it comes to it, and you know what the ocean's like, Iceland is just, it is a rugged, very, very cold place. Sure, when I just saw the clip now, it just brings back those memories. Having somebody's life in your hands, that's probably the biggest responsibility you could ever have.
Yeah, and that was sort of where I was leading to. And I get it. You were really the captain of that trip. You're the captain of that voyage, and you have a lot of responsibility weighing on your shoulders. And that's where I got it. I sort of learned that at that moment when you told that story. And my thought is, has that changed the way you work with others? Do you think of this moment when you're training others and taking on projects like the Odyssey?
Yeah, definitely. Sure. You couldn't have said it better. I did change. I realized there's a lot of things, and you sometimes can, and especially stubborn people. I fall into that category. I have always in my life growing up, always been that Lone Ranger, the guy that had to make it happen for himself. I understood what that meant, but my heart felt that there was something as a human being that I wanted to share this and do something for somebody else, to share this space with me. And the thing that I had to learn was more patience. I am a super impatient person. I know that, and sometimes I can't even work it out. I say to Fusty sometimes, I can feel I'm being impatient. I am recognizing it, but I'm not just adjusting like I should. And that was way back. And I think that journey did help me. I think I still made huge mistakes in the way I communicated sometimes, but definitely now when I talk to people, or like with the Odyssey with Fanafakile, there was times when I paused and possibly learned that big lesson of rather hearing somebody else's story out first before you have a reply.
Sure, man, I get it. I've had a lot of crew join me on my journeys as well, and one of the things that I find for myself is that I sort of forget the days when I first started and when I went out there and how I was actually scared. I remember the wind blew a few times and the boat heeled over, and I was just learning how to sail, and I was freaking scared. I thought the thing was going to flip over. But, you know, I forgot about years down the road. I sort of forgot about those things. And when people got on board, I'm in a totally different comfort zone. You know, things that bother them don't bother me whatsoever. So I would lose my patience, I would find, in some situations, especially when we started working with tourists and I was running a boat, being a captain. You know, they'd come back, oh, the wind was blowing, the tents were flapping. You know, and Janet and I would just start laughing, you know. Yeah. But so I get it, and but I also think that is something you probably learned there on that day for sure about the value of life and being responsible for somebody else on your watch. So, yeah.
You know, thinking about those days, like we can laugh at those moments now, but when we were there, it was just like very stressful. You know, it's like trying to accommodate them as the best as you can, but then their complaints are just so petty, you know, and you can't.
They're valuable to them, right?
Yes,
they have a different level.
Yes. Like they started to, you know, to complain about they started to look for lobster and where is this, where is that? It's like, okay. Oh my God. Anyway, so Riaan, going back, when this near disaster happened, how far into the trip were you? And did this change Dan's level of fear or morale in any way? Did you almost call it quits and pack it at this point?
No, not at all. Just start from the last question. Not once have I ever considered it, just packing it in. So there was no way. I think that day was about a month into the journey. If I recall right, it was maybe towards the end of that first month, and it definitely affected his morale. I mean, I think my patience had just, it wasn't just impatience, it was actually just my ability to be able to negotiate with the guy that I felt wasn't understanding the gravity of the danger we were in. I mean, after that day, I realized for the first time that I had no control of it. The luck that I had to see him, the fact that it was a yellow dry suits we had on, the fact that I found him within that like 10 minutes, and he was missing for 5 minutes, but I was able to pick him up.
Wow.
In 5-10 minutes, I had him actually onto the boat and then could land nearby. The fact that we only had another 16 kilometers to go in that day, those were all just blessings, I think, or luck that I think just came our way. But my approach changed, Janet, when it came to when I said, make this effort, or put your paddle in the water, or don't paddle, or make an effort. I was saying to him, listen, this is life and death. What actually did happen after that day is the entire way that I managed that journey that I thought was going to take 3 months changed. I only let us paddle on relatively fair weather. So the wind had to be in our favor, number one. And then if you guys know a little bit about Iceland, I don't know what sailors consider the northern part of Iceland, but it is a rugged place. And I only chose the days that we could definitely go and shorten the distance.
Get in the water and get out of the water is the hard part,
Yeah.
I'm sure, yeah.
Yeah, I'm curious. So you paddled Africa, you kayak Madagascar, and now you're in Iceland. How did this pan out? How did you come up with this concept to bring your friend Dan, who has cerebral palsy, I believe?
It's cerebral palsy, yeah.
Yeah.
That's right.
How did you plan this?
Janet, first thing I'd gone to Greenland. We were actually just over there on a ship called the Shikelski. We had gone up the east coast of Greenland and then did a bit of a recce in Skorbusen Fjord, which is the world's largest fjord. And I was actually just getting ready for my crossing of Greenland. I wanted to do something again special to cross that ice cap unaided and alone again. And then I remember coming back. I mean, probably what it came down to again was that 20 seconds. Fasti and I had stayed in Iceland on the way to Greenland and on the way back. And if you've ever been there, you fly out of a place called Keflavik, and when the airplane turns, if the sky is clear, you see that island just the shape of it just becomes so much more crystal clear with Vatnajökull Glacier on top of Iceland. And I remember looking down at the coastline and thinking to myself, wouldn't it be incredible to paddle around this majestic place, to paddle around there? I'd spoken to Dan. Janet, it had been social gathering after social gathering after social gathering where I would sit with a beer in hand with Dan and say, listen, you and me, of course I'll take you on a journey. Of course I will. And I was lying every single time. I was probably like many of his friends would have told him, yes, I'll do this with you, buddy, but didn't. And I just thought, I'm not going to bull dust him. I said to Fasti, sitting next to me on the plane, I said to her, how beautiful is that? I think I'm going to paddle around Iceland. We're going to do it in the summer, and we're going to, I'm going to ask Dan to come with me. We landed the following morning. I called him, and he said yes, and he didn't even hesitate. He just said, yes, let's go.
Wow.
So that's how it actually happened, taking Dan with him, paddling around there.
Wow, what
Amazing.
a commitment, And Vasti, him cycling by himself and kayaking by himself, you supported him, and now that he's bringing somebody with him, what was your reaction?
I think my first reaction was I was a little bit relieved because he wouldn't be alone, and for some other reason I thought it would be safer, and I was then naive because obviously they weren't safer.
Yeah, that's how I took
together
it.
because Riaan had the strain on him of having to be this responsible person for this other person's life, and it was actually much harder than I ever thought that it would be, not just physically for Dan that's got cerebral palsy, but Riaan having to deal with that, and also the mental, being a leader, and it was tough.
Being unpopular, Janet, the thing is that Fasti saw firsthand. She couldn't come to Iceland as often. I think she visited once on the entire journey. I ran out of money. I had to pay salaries for everybody, and we had a crew filming. We wanted to document the incredible story that we thought it was going to be, and it was phenomenal to be able to capture that. But we just also ran out of money, where eventually I couldn't bring Fasti to the finish for her to actually see me.
Right, everything got hard.
But the one thing I think, and I heard Todd just agreeing to that, it was just more dangerous just for me with Dan in the boat. But I took that responsibility. Not once did I say I should not have had Dan with or not. I just felt that would have been such a betrayal just to myself.
Good
but
on
also
you.
just to.
Good
so
on you.
I never ever voiced that. But the one thing I think that really we battled with was that I didn't have the support from Fasti, especially at the low times when I had to be the leader in that group. Sure. I mean, the guys hated me eventually. I was the guy who was saying, we have to do this, we have to do that. And they were saying, are you sure we have to? Are you sure we have to paddle at 1 o'clock in the morning?
It's hard being that guy, but you got to do it if you're going to do it right.
Yes.
So I know it. Yep.
But you and Dan, you're still friends, and you still have plans in the future to do something together?
No, unfortunately, the romantic story didn't work out like that, Janet. We didn't stay friends. It just wasn't. It's like anything. I always tell people, especially if I'm in a corporate space, is that, hey, man, we can get over it. My work, you would have thought that would have been such a grand thing to continue that relationship. But many a business deal doesn't always make you the best of friends and best man at that guy's wedding. It doesn't happen. So unfortunately, it is a thing I regret a lot. I do. I feel as if I failed there in a way, and people close to you help you digest and understand that not everything in life does work out the way you want.
That's right, man. That's the story of life. That's
it's only
how
in
it
the
is.
books, like live happily ever after.
That's true.
I want to ask one more question about ISA, and then we're going to move on to the big event. But so this is a pretty extreme environment you're working in. And I'm not sure, but when I was checking out your kayak looked pretty special. I'm not quite sure, but it almost looked like it was self-bailing, sit on top, but different. I haven't seen a kayak like that before, so it looked pretty special. And I'm just curious about, was there any gear that you had, or a piece of gear or piece of equipment which made the expedition possible, or the one thing that you would recommend somebody who would try something like this?
Yeah, the first thing is just on those kayaks. They were sit on top, sit inside kayaks. Where you could also put a spray skirt on, and then they were self-bailing. So,
Right.
I mean, they won an award, and forgive me which year that I cannot remember, but Paddle Yak is the name of the maker, a guy by the name of Riaan Lewis, who probably has done more paddling than I have, I think. He designed this boat that he felt needed to be expedition style.
Mm-hmm.
So if you got smashed in a wave, and especially by a boomer, you needed to be able to roll, get back onto your boat, and sit on it and start paddling again.
You
and
don't
the
need
water
to
should be able to drain.
Yeah, it totally makes sense. That's why I looked. I'd never seen sort of an expedition kayak that was self-bailing. And I immediately I was thinking about the conditions you're in. And, I've been in a kayak. I've done I actually was a kayak guide in Alaska years ago. And I've been in some pretty big seas. And when it kicks up, and it kicks up fast sometimes, they're not like, they're hard to keep stable sometimes, And when you roll them,
Very much.
and they're not self-bailers, it's a problem.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely. So I think about my experience from using that banana boat. If you remember the look of that boat of mine, which was also a paddle yak boat,
Mm-hmm.
it was again just a little bit of naivety. I just love like what the Inuit style and history is of them and what they've achieved in ocean faring. And their boats have got that extreme rocker.
Right.
So my Madagascar boat in
Yeah.
the roughest of times, it saved me. It saved me so much. Similar design, but not as fast. A lot slower boat.
Mm-hmm.
So we used that boat. But you also asked Todd what piece of equipment. Man, just when you were mentioning what piece of equipment would jump to mind when I thought what I'd like. The dry suit, of course. I mean, you would have to paddle in that. But we used these mitts that went over the paddles. And I would take my hands out, and I would think I'd be able to do something like maybe open a hatch on the kayak. My hands would almost freeze, especially the first month of the journey. I'd battle to open just those
Right, your
hatches
fingers
alone.
aren't working.
Yeah.
But as soon as I put them back into those mitts, oh man, it was like putting it around a warm fire.
Really?
So those mitts were
For our
incredible.
audience, give us the brand name.
I don't even know. I paid. Listen, I bought it from that company, so I'm not going to tell you. Shucks.
Okay.
Yeah, we get it. That's important. Janet, she's climbed Everest, but I don't know if I believe her because she gets so cold so fast,
Yeah.
But
That's my Waterloo. It's so to speak, but yes.
okay, I want to pull up. We're going to move on. I want to pull up a quick clip just to introduce this next section. Can you pull up clip 5, Maddie, please?
Going to be a cold one.
It started as a simple request. Adventurer Riaan Manser's girlfriend wanted him to take her to New York City.
It is unbelievable.
After years of circumnavigating the continent, the South African was up for a holiday. Known for his record-setting journeys, he wasn't much for flying. So they rode there. In December 2013, they set off from the Moroccan coast in a 23-foot sea kayak, designed for ocean rowing. After nearly 11,000 kilometres and over 3 million oar strokes, Manser and Fasti slid into the New York harbour on June 20th, 2014.
Okay. Let's talk about ocean rowing from Morocco to New York City. Now, I thought about this quite a bit, actually. And the way I take it, this is your first ocean row, right? Besides being in a kayak. Correct?
Sure.
Okay, so if so, which it is, being the first time, how did you decide to bring your partner Vasti on a world first, an epic paddle? We're not just talking Morocco to Barbados. We're talking Morocco to New York City. How did you decide or talk Vasti into this epic paddle? And how did you decide to convince yourself to make the plunge, so to speak, into adventure, your first big adventure, and it's grandiose. We're not talking about a month or 2 months at sea. We're talking about nearly 6 months at sea. So to me, the whole concept, your first adventure, it's the biggest in the world. I don't get it. Can you give us a brief on this whole thing?
I'd rather let Fasti explain how it came about.
I actually came out of nowhere because we were sitting here on our couch watching TV, and out of nowhere, I was still working for a lawyer's firm at that time. And then out of nowhere, I said to Riaan, I want to do something incredible in my life. And I think it maybe is what he has done has rubbed off on me. And I wanted that feeling of achievement. And then a week later, Riaan came back to me and he said, Fasti, you told me you want to do something incredible in your life. And I said, yes. And he said, well, I'm going to take you to New York. And I thought, well, how is that going to be like incredible? Of course, I would like to go. I've never been to the US. And he said, but we are not going there by aeroplane. We are actually going to take an ocean rowing boat and we are going to row there. And with Riaan, people row across oceans. Usually they leave the Canaries and they go to the Caribbean, one of the Leeward or Windward, those islands.
Mm-hmm.
But Riaan wanted to not just do something that everybody has done. So, and with all his other journeys as well. And then he came up with the idea that we're not going to stop in the Caribbean. We're actually going on to New York because I want to show you what New York looks like.
Wow.
That's crazy. I mean, when you talk about that, how it comes about, it's all these good ideas. Sometimes when we see children dream and then I see an adult tell that child, listen, that's not possible. I mean, so what if we as adults believe something that's not possible, Let the child dream, because only people who are willing to dream and be criticized for that dream are the ones that make history. So when it came to the rowing to New York, people said, listen, you can't. You can only follow trade winds. And I did realize, I realized, listen, this is going to be a big ask. But I said to Fasti, let's deal with it when we get to that Puerto Rico area, the Cuban area, around that space. That's when we'll start saying, listen, we've buggered up or not.
Yeah, you can make a choice at that point.
Yeah. Just land anywhere there. But Fasti and I said now, I mean, if you asked Fasti now, what was the saving grace for that journey to make it happen was the naivety that we realized about the ocean.
Oh my God.
I mean,
I think the ocean rowing community, when they saw what we wanted to do, must have thought that we are crazy, because nobody's rowed up the east coast of America before. It's so nobody knows what it's like or what can happen. And two novices in ocean rowing, and now we're saying, oh, we're going to do it.
In the Gulf Stream, I mean, of all places, you guys as sailors know the Gulf Stream, especially with a little bit of a headwind or north wind into the Gulf Stream, is thinks big ships, So we definitely did have huge ambitions, and it wasn't easy to actually achieve it. I think when we arrived in Miami, we had made that world record of the only people to row Africa to North America. And I don't think Fasti and I tried to find some loophole in our commitment to each other about having to go all the way to New York City another month. I spent so much, but we're so glad that we did. And
you could see the coast and you're going, cold beer, good food. Shouldn't we pull over, honey?
So near yet so far.
Hey, yeah, so I'd have to say, and I looked at that route, one, I commend you. You really chose to pull that off in that record. You definitely chose the right route. You did it in perfect timing when I looked at it, that I saw that the hurricane season was going to roll in somewhere around June. And I saw your timing of everything and the Gulf Stream and how that works. It's pretty good job, man. You did it right. Did it right.
Thank you. Todd, that was entirely by accident. So listen, I'm going to take the praise, but goodness gracious, by mistake. First, I do look at that now when we see the arriving in New York at the time. I think we were in New York, and then they were showing on TV just how these storms from the south, or just from the north or from the south.
Yeah, they
just
come
smashing the coast, you know. So
Come
you
from-
are right, but entirely planned.
Unplanned. Okay. So, you know, I saw some stuff when we were in Dubai and you were doing your presentation and you threw up some of these maps. Something really struck me about this trip, and I want to pull it up right now and ask you a question. This is... Okay, here we go. Going up the coast. What's that? What happened
That's
there?
organized sightseeing. That's the North Carolina sightseeing week-long tour that we were on. No, first you will explain to you what happened that week.
No, you know, when you are, like you said, it's 6 months at sea and you're so close, and then we get there almost to New York City, and anybody that knows when the Gulf Stream moves north,
It's going about 5 to 7 knots. It's rolling pretty fast.
Yeah, and it's a phenomenon. And when there's a storm coming from the north, you don't want to be in the Gulf
it's
Stream.
ugly. Wind against tide, wind against currents, really steep, ugly. No one goes across it.
Imagine wind against such a fast current that's going like that. We had to get out of the Gulf Stream, and we just got out of the Gulf Stream, I think probably a day before the storm came from the north, and then that storm pushed us back all the way back in that circle. And that circle is about 350 kilometers, and a week later that we got on track again.
Wow. Now, that totally makes sense. I kept looking at it, I was going, that must be a mistake. Maybe they drew the pencil wrong or something. What's going on there?
Now you got your answer.
Yeah.
Somebody wasn't concentrating, I think, when they drew that map, but it was disappointing for us to spend, another week in that boat. But we rounded after that. We took like a slingshot with that 6. The one day I was busy swimming and just brought back a memory. The water was calm, Todd. When I say like a mirror, I jumped into the water. You know that the Gulf Stream is sometimes 27, 28 degrees Celsius in the center.
Yep.
And I jumped out and I was unable to even cool down. And then I said to Fasti, nothing's moving around us. And I said to her, what's the speed? And it was like 6.3 knots.
It's incredible.
Can you imagine that? So anyway, we rounded Cape Hatteras, and if you guys know a little bit about that area, I think it is in Delaware where the big naval and the Virginia also, where they've got the air base as well. And a lot of we'd watch while we're rowing during the day were these planes busy doing mock combats and above us. It was like watching a show. But the one day, they're called Grumman's. They're the big warships U.S. Coast Guard use. Not even it's their warships, not even Coast Guard ships. And I got out to take a breather. It was huge storms. Looked out, probably 200 meters away from us, one of these warships was coming past. Hadn't seen them on our AIS.
All right.
Shucks, they put it off. So I call one of the. So I said, Grumman. Man, there was panic in these ships. They started putting up different flags. They asked us, please just can give us your coordinates.
They didn't see you.
But I want to just make a joke about that. And the joke goes like this, is that these guys were doing a training day of the worst storms off that coast. Now, most of them would get off after the week's training in that rough storm and go home to their family and get the pat on the back and tell them how bad it was.
Yeah.
None of them went home and told their family that they saw 2 people in a rowing boat in the same conditions.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
Two crazy people.
They're like, they don't want to tell that. We weren't heroes that day.
But amazing, that Cape Hatteras is a very, very dangerous area, as you guys know as sailors.
Sure.
It's treacherous. I think you're supposed to take the inside route, not the outside route like we did. Yeah,
I've crossed the Gulf Stream now a few times, and it's always, no one wants to cross that when the winds are blowing down the coast. It's somewhere around 20 to 25 knots. Everyone gets scared and they don't even cross it. So I can imagine you guys saw some pretty steep, rough stuff out there.
Ooh, I can imagine. So, wow. What can I say, Basti? I commend you for having this idea and dream of having something very, very big and grandeur in your life. And hats off. I was going to ask you is like, how did you plan out to tackle on your woman's side, so to speak, regarding your emotions, your beauty and hygiene regimen throughout this journey? Did you have any plans? Did you have any?
What, Jen?
Yeah.
Wait, I want to show you something.
Oh.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, that's a picture.
There's a Mihan, there's H and James. Cool.
We love that picture, James.
Janet, you know what? I didn't plan for any of those things. I went in with it with thinking, it's just going to be another day and take each day as it is. I didn't think about how I would react to things or anything like that. And I didn't even think about, I thought, I'll take some shampoo and I'll take some conditioner and then I'll work it out the way, how it goes. So I wasn't really worried about planning too much, because when you're in that situation, you can't get out of it. So you have to make a plan anyway. So I wasn't thinking, I must plan for this and this and this and this, because I knew there wasn't an out and I'll have to deal with it.
Wow. Yes. And I can really relate, because I've been traveling and been with Todd, and when we had the expeditions, you had also to sort of like mind yourself, and also how to plan it out, that you're not going to be a burden. In fact, you're going to be a partner. Yes. So.
Yes.
Well, they say familiarity breeds contempt. Your relationship was put into the test during this crossing, and I saw in one of your videos that you had a record of 3.5 days that you and Riaan did not talk. What sparked that moment of not speaking, and how far were you into that journey? And what was the icebreaker after 3.5 days? What was the icebreaker?
You asked what sparked that moment. It was not something that sparked that moment. I think it was like something, the straw that broke the camel's back. It's like a lot of things that came, that was built up. And not only on that journey, but in our relationship for 14 years, I think it was a boiling pot, and it was almost in the middle of the Atlantic that that volcano just went.
Yeah.
And things came out between Riaan and I that, obviously now before we chose not to speak to each other, but we were really in a bad space. I think say you need to go to the lowest part, and then you can climb up again. And I think that's what happened to us. And I know what actually you said, what sparked it. It was actually an electrical problem, because we capsized and our satellite phone broke, and I wanted to help him fix it, and he didn't let me. And then I said, but I'm not just here to cook and clean and blah, blah, blah. And then at that moment, it was done. And we didn't speak to each other. But I think we didn't really go out and say, I'm sorry, let's talk about it. I think we needed to speak to someone, because we couldn't speak to anybody anymore, because we didn't have a satellite phone. So it was total necessity to speak to the actual person that you're sitting like this close to all the time.
You didn't have any
Janet,
choice.
Also it had something definitely to do with the capsize also, because it was traumatic, man. It was we were rowing at the time, both of us on the oars. When we look back at it now, we just realize how lucky we were. The boat threw me, the wave threw me out of the boat. I was just luckily near the anchor rope and got hold of that. Fusty got caught underneath the boat by her foot straps. So I think also a little bit of post-traumatic stress, I think, probably added to that, and just added that moving the dial of the pressure cooker from 3 to 6.
Wow. Yes. I could just imagine. It's a high-strung and very stressful moment, and a lot of emotions are being built up and just blown away, and just put in the table, and you just have to deal with on that moment. And maybe 3.5 days of not talking is a good break after all. But you didn't have any choice because
It's
there's
not a
only
break anybody wants to make, I
yeah,
think.
I know, but
Riaan
they didn't have any choice. There were only 2 of them in the middle of the ocean, so you have to talk. But yes, just like in real life, relationships are being tested, and we go through these things, and we learn, and we just move forward, as we all know.
Okay. They made it. I want to
Yeah,
commend
they
you.
made
Good
it.
job. You made it through another one. Those are big storms.
Man.
So this sort of lines up the next question. What made you decide to row to Hawaii for your honeymoon? And what made you want to row such a long distance again after the hardships you faced in your transatlantic trip?
It's a simple answer. Fusty did say to me that she wanted to go to an exotic destination for our honeymoon. She had mentioned and joked about Hawaii. It's the antipode from South Africa. So, it's the furthest we could go from our country on the planet. And then the 2 of us just joked about it. I think we did joke, and we had a laugh to say, listen, imagine we actually rode there. Wouldn't that be an incredible story? I think our exact words were, one day for our children and for our grandchildren. Mom and dad for the honeymoon rode to Hawaii.
Mm-hmm.
And it was an idea. But then it just stuck.
A story that'll be passed down for centuries from...
Yeah.
I compare it like to childbirth. You forget how bad it was, and then you have another child. So I forgot how bad it was on that first trip. So we decided to have another child.
Good analogy. It's hard work. It's definitely hard work.
Or a bad...
Hard work, but always worth it.
Yes.
So that's the better part of the analogy. So
we had sorry, man, I was going to interrupt. We had a pact that said we were going to have fun no matter what. We weren't going to try break records. We weren't going to try go fast. We were just going to chill. We're going to catch fish. We're going to eat what we want. We took extra food. We took actually a chocolate each day, which we didn't have before. So I mean, we were geared up for a real relaxing row. And then from like second night, it just turned into the horror show.
So proposal in Madagascar and honeymoon from rowing. That's really romantic. Or record.
I think that's what he said in Dubai. I'm the most romantic guy in the world.
Yes,
something like that.
Yes, he did.
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay, you guys were talking about a capsize, and that's what I wanted to touch base on, because somewhere around the 100-kilometer mark on your way offshore of California, I think you said that you also capsized there. And I know that the winds typically blow from the northwest down from the Aleutian Islands. So I'm curious, what happened here? Was it a rogue wave, or was it a storm situation? And what was your strategy? Now, I'm curious now on both capsizes, because I wasn't familiar with the first one. What's your strategy or action strategy to overcome this kind of situation?
So the first one was during daylight. We were, the boat has been picked up a few times. So we've been we've nearly had it head over or tail over head, when we've been sitting in the nose.
Pitch pole, they call it.
Yeah, and lifted it right up. Fusty was doing a nap after lunch, and I was awake and saw the wave break behind us and lift the boat up onto its nose.
Wow.
Balancing, and then the wave dissipated, and then it came back down. And the Fusty didn't know what had happened, So,
good day.
So listen,
the second one was So
the bottom line, I think, just with that second wave was, it was definitely just, the conditions definitely are that northwesterly, and they create that side swell. So we've got the swell running down the coast, and then we've got that northwesterly swell combining with the little boat. I mean, our boat weighs 700-800 kilograms, and you don't need a massive wave. So I think some of those waves, the rogue waves that were breaking, were probably in the region of maybe 8 foot around there. And it was 2:30 in the morning. We were both asleep, and I can just remember that huge smash. Carbon fiber's got that lovely echoing ability to be able to just make sound even more amplified. And I the smash. And then I flew across. It was my side of the the cockpit, which was obviously now going on the starboard side. And I just remember flying across the little cockpit, which is nothing, the little cabin, and I could feel the contact that I made with the wall on the other side. And then the only thing I remember again was with my knee on Fusty's back, with the boat upside down, and then the cabin door, busy looking down into that green darkness with our mast lights still busy lighting it up. And then our air vent was just spraying water in. Guys, we didn't know what had happened. We were both just stunned.
Right.
We thought maybe a container,
It's a
a
nightmare.
ship had hit us. We didn't know what had happened. And then we could smell that blood smell that was spraying across the cabin. And then that was obviously my head that had opened up now from hitting the fire extinguisher. And then I remember just lifting my knee off Fusty so she could move, and then just saying to her, let's, walk this around.
Because now the boat was on its head, and we were lying.
Right. So you're upside down. It didn't right itself. Is that what I'm getting here?
No, because we were
the weight.
We were on the we are on the roof.
You're on the roof of the cabin. You're laying on the cabin in the roof area. Yeah.
Right, and then we actually had to walk it around like a hamster in a wheel so that it could self-right.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Yeah, so I was wondering what the strategy is. I don't really know those boats that well, and a sailboat will typically right itself with its keel, but I'm presuming you don't have much keel on those things, and they're made light for speed, so totally different situation.
The idea behind a rowing boat is that you need to pack your boat very well. You've got a heavy water maker, your battery also, which weigh probably in the region of 150 kilograms, and then your water maker, you guys know the that can't be more than 30-40 kilograms. And then we pack tools, so you could probably put a water ballast in there as well of another 100 kilograms. So that would give us like 300-400. The boat is designed to self-right if you don't have enough water coming and you don't have the weight of those two people lying on that roof. So it is designed, they're very well designed, but the point is, and you just touched on it now, if you don't have a keel, if that cabin door was open, you're
done. And I presume there were nights, you probably had a lot of nights you kept the cabin door open because of the temperature and maybe the sea conditions. Am I correct?
Yeah.
You probably just kept it open, but in that situation, if you had had it open, maybe it was, California coastline, usually it's quite cold, but in the right situation, you'd have been doomed if you had that door open, I presume. Yeah.
You're right. We actually, when we look back to our road to New York City, we were like north of Puerto Rico, the American Virgin Islands, that area just northeast of them. And we remember it being so dead calm, not a whisper, beautiful, huge moon. And we actually opened up the cabin door. We actually tied it with an elastic band so that it wouldn't swing closed. If our boat rocked a little bit, it wouldn't close. And we just lay there and stared at the stars and then fell asleep for the night to wake up again. And we're just drifting around at the time. But if we ever did that, ever did that on that Pacific road, we would have been doomed.
Yeah. So I've been traveling by sea for more than 25 years, and I find it's a very special place. I find some of my experiences in the middle of the ocean quite profound. I actually feel quite safe out there. No one comes knocking on the door. Nobody says, come pay your bill. No. I really enjoy it out there. There's something, I don't know, maybe I'm different, but I really like being in the middle of the ocean. What do you guys find special about rowing for you?
It was probably the solitude, that you're there, and like we were probably in the middle of the Atlantic, and I said to Riaan, we are not anywhere, we are in the world, because you can't be defined to some country, you were just there.
Yeah.
And that was quite amazing. And
a place without borders. Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah.
And also a place where you speak now, Todd, of that silence that almost has a sound. When it's dead calm and that boat is not, so you're not even hearing the lapping just on the side of the boat or at the back on the stern. You sometimes just pause and you actually have to hold your breath and then just slow your heart rate down so that doesn't make a loud noise either. And you listen to that sound of the world, and on the water. And we just actually just can't even believe what we do. that we actually got to experience that. We filled up halfway across the Atlantic. I jumped overboard and I filled like a 5-liter container with water from the middle of the ocean. And Faustin and I was saying that's how we bring back in a little bottle for friends and people we know and people that have supported us. Just a little idea. I think some people mix it with their whiskey on a big party night. I don't know if they do that, but we don't mind. At least we brought them a little bit back of that spirit of what it's like in the middle of.
Apple, Mama. Who put that apple?
I can hear James. Yes. So when we cross oceans on our sailboat, we usually do shifts. So 4 hours on, 4 hours off. I'm guessing most people imagine you're constantly paddling. What will an average day look like for both of you?
So what we did, Janet, what we decided was initially we were going to try do like a few hours on, a few hours off, a few hours on, and try to do that because we'd heard that it was like a rumor among the ocean rowing community. And, you know, we just think it is absolutely, we don't think there's an intelligence that goes behind that, the idea of rowing on and off and being sleep deprived, number one. And number two, we absolutely don't believe that it's humanly possible to absolutely go for 60 days, 2 hours on, 2 hours off, 2 hours on. We personally don't think it's possible. So after day 1 or day 2, we decided to change that format, didn't we? The routine we took.
From what? Oh, I didn't hear. I was supposed to be James.
Sorry.
It's okay. We'll fill you in here. He's telling you about what your daily routine was.
So the routine just became where we went from sunrise to sunset. So we'd normally wake up an hour and a bit before. I think our alarm used to go off at about 4-ish, around the 4:30. Fusty would make some coffee. We'd, depending on how we felt, and we'd change up this routine also, whether we'd have a little bit of a breakfast before or 2 coffees before we start. But we'd go out and then smash 2-3 hours and then have breakfast and then have a little bit of a break. And that breakfast would be like a half an hour session. And then we would, again, depending on what we were trying to achieve, again, just smash another 4 or 5 hours. By that time, when you're getting to like the 7-hour, 8-hour mark, you really are not just physically tired and fatigued. You're actually you're lame. We're not speaking to each other, not because for any reason, but just we're so tired. And then after that, the lunchtime, then we would just row into that sunset, which was very special. Every day we'd just see that sun setting. It would set behind us, of course, on the New York trip. And then we'd go to we'd manner and go to sleep. And it wasn't difficult to go to sleep. I think I fell asleep sometimes with my plate of food on my chest with my spoon in my mouth.
It'll just knock you up. Yes, I could just imagine, like the fatigue and the stress that it's putting in your body.
Yeah, well, I find, like, for example, on boats, which no one really talks about, is that the boat is always moving. So even when you're sleeping, your stomach muscles are working out. Yeah. Right? So not only are you paddling all day, you're compensating for the boat moving. When you're sleeping, you're laying in bed, your whole body's compensating for the waves. It's a huge amount of stress on the body. And I can imagine you'd be quite fatigued.
But I hear from sailors that when you talk about that, Todd, I see this, I don't know how you pronounce it, but the Vendée, the boat race, the sailing race that's happening now.
The Globe Vendée, the around the world race,
Oh, the people were just talking about just the physical space the guys had to get in to be able to maintain that, because everything is constantly moving. Yeah. So a very good point.
Yep.
So when you're not paddling, how do you keep your boat on course? Do you have any autopilot or
any self-steering gear whatsoever? Gear? How, like when you're sleeping at night, what keeps the boat on course?
No, we had an autopilot. We just felt that we'd waste battery. I mean, we made the decision very early on that we wouldn't waste any of the battery power. We had some very closer to Africa, and especially leaving San Francisco, was that we had, leaving Monterey, I think we had like weeks on end of no sunlight.
Yeah, so it's foggy there all the time.
Yeah.
We never used the autopilot. What we did do was I sometimes set the rudder exactly square, so it would be to keep the boat going in a straight direction. We found probably on the coast of the San Francisco, Monterey area was that we were getting pushed far too south. So we had to throw the drogue now and then. On the Africa trip, when we were leaving Morocco, we were getting sucked back at night to land. So we'd throw the drogue again. But generally, when we got into the trade winds, what would happen is you would just be blown off the westerly route, either south or north.
Sure.
So then we would just we'd take those 20 miles that were given to us through the night,
right,
as a present. But listen, when we got north of like Puerto Rico again, just that area, we really believed in the Bermuda Triangle. I don't know if you guys are suspicious of that area as well, but we thought, man, we're going to be part of that Bermuda Triangle story.
We're
getting stuck up north.
Yeah.
Ooh, yeah.
Well, yeah, you know, Todd has this wind vane in his boat and is as his autopilot, and I really never understood how it works, and I never really had run it really efficiently. So he would explain it better. But yes,
it's really just my other love affair. Anyway,
wind vane.
Yeah, wind vane. So it's all mechanical. It's quite an amazing invention, and you know they actually didn't invent it until about 50 or 60 years ago, after thousands of years of sailing. But it's great. You just once you lock it on course, it's incredible. Okay, hey, we're gonna move on. We're gonna move on to another section. We just want to pull up a real quick clip, introduce it real quick.
Yeah. Wow.
Janet, that's you.
The Odyssey. Can you tell us, Riaan, how it all started and what it entails? Can you give us the devil in the detail?
Yeah, listen, that was essentially born from the fact that we owned this special rowing boat. We had the resource. They're very expensive pieces of equipment. And look at them, they. So we just thought, listen, we speak about making this opportunity available for others, but it actually was a real conversation that Fast and I had. We had left Miami. I remember it was like the second or third day when we had left Miami and we were heading up north. And then I said to her while we were rowing, hey, listen, I have everything in my ability to make this opportunity available for somebody else. And it landed up being that, Janet. I got back from the Hawaii row and I said to Fasti, I can't just laugh this off. I promised that I would do this. So we just put a call to entry out, and we expected like maybe 200, 300 entries. We hoped for 500. That was my business and my staff members' dream. I remember us leaving. It was a Friday afternoon. We'd been working on this project for like 2 years. And I can remember we were having drinks and just snacks, and then just celebrating that the launch of this project was happening. And I tried to like keep the guys' spirits up by saying, listen, all we need is 500 entries. If we've done that, we've got beyond the stars. And then we got 15,000 crazy people who said, listen,
South Africans.
So, I mean, just it was, Janet, it was beautiful how it seamlessly worked out. I didn't have any intention of who we were going to choose or any preconceived idea. In South Africa, we are a country where, we try really hard. And I, as a South African, this responsibility of sharing with people outside of our country how hard South Africans of all races work to make our country work. We make an effort. And I think everybody would have thought that, it would have been maybe just some opportunity we'd offered to an underprivileged person. It was never ever our intention. We offered it out to any South African. The select or the judges chose 10 special people. If you ever get a chance to, I don't know if it is online now, but the Odyssey, the episode 4 and 5 is actually where the guys go through this boot camp. And those top 10 are like a spread of South Africans of all walks of life. Fanafakile Lepacha was the guy that won. Now, if you had said to me, so Riaan, why did the judges choose him? I wasn't one of the judges, but I asked them also, why did you guys choose him? And they eventually have answered me. But the glaringly obvious thing that they missed about this guy was that he couldn't swim.
Oh my God. Yeah, we've had a few divers like that. We taught how to dive. It's hard in the beginning, but eventually they became some of our best divers.
Yes.
Strange enough.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
But so this
was fun as well.
So it really boiled down to only one person paddled from Morocco to Barbados. Is that what happened, or was it teams?
I joined him. So Fana and I were in the same boat. So we, Fana Fakile and I, we shipped the boat to Canary Islands. We met up with the boat. Then it was the two of us that rowed together across to Barbados.
So this already happened. You guys have completed the trip.
Yeah,
Okay.
we finished. What year are we now? 2020. How could I forget that? It was actually the beginning of last year, about a year ago. Yeah, that we finished about a year ago. So, gee, I don't even know where I am now. It's 2020 November. Shucks, more than a year and a half ago that we actually did finish the journey together. It took us 46 days crammed together in that boat. Todd, you know what's extraordinary about this is that Fun and I didn't know each other from a bar of soap, eh?
Right.
And we come from different.
You're going to know each other after the trip.
Well, we are definitely. We were going to, and now we're very, very good friends. We've done a lot of, I think, reflection. I think, you know, diversity is something people speak about in this world that we live in. They say, "Come on, man, you know, make the diversity work for you. You know, you can be stronger." And I actually lived it, and we saw the ugly side of each other, and came out to the other side a hell of a lot better, all because we were so diverse. And I know that Fusty absolutely agrees. He's an incredible guy, Fana.
Far out.
And has taught so much.
Right on. That's a great story. Awesome. Awesome to hear that.
So, what was more difficult, being in a cramped space with Vasti or with Van? I don't know.
You don't have to answer that question. No, go ahead.
Listen, it was easier. How can I put this politely? And listen, if my wife let a little wind go, it was okay. If my new friend Fana let the wind go, I wasn't too happy. And also, it's two guys, man. It's
right.
like
a... you can totally act different with the guy in the house. You're like, hey, man, that isn't acceptable here, buddy. This is a man house.
So like also, and then also two guys don't keep things as clean as they should.
Oh yeah, boy clean and girl clean are totally different.
Yeah, and the thing is that I actually decided that I was going to jump into the water also to have little baths and showers, where Fana decided wet wipes were good enough. So I mean, there was just these little things, you know, that I couldn't communicate to him, like saying, "Hey, listen, I'm uncomfortable with that. You need to do more about that hygiene." Because we didn't know each other well enough.
Interesting.
And that's the awkwardness. Yeah, man, it's like simple things like that could have been huger things. With Fusty, I could say to her, "Listen, do I smell a little bit?" And then I'd go have a very good clean on
she
deck.
probably said that every day, a little bit. Yeah. Wow, that's it. Really. So this whole time, Janet and I, you know, the internet and what you've been doing with the Odyssey, sort of putting things. How do I put this? Well, we really presumed that you guys were going through your training now, and you're about to go on your paddle here in the next few days. That's how we were taking it. So we're actually behind a year by following you on the internet. So
that serves you right for making us your third guests. We should have been the first.
Well, we haven't actually gone live with anything, and you might actually end up being the first guest on the live broadcast. We're not quite sure how it's going to roll out, but we're going to probably gather 5 or 6 interviews, and then we'll start dropping them in as 1 week at a time. So we've got some leeway ahead of us before we produce each show. So we'll see what happens in the future. But here we go. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry. Would you like me to arrange for you guys maybe to chat to Fana Fakile? I mean, he would be a lovely, lovely person to speak to.
Oh, yeah.
Let's do it. Line it up.
Yeah.
We'd love to talk to him. This would be great. And yeah, we're so stoked we got to hook up with you. You really got this great voice for Africa, and it's really, really cool seeing all the things you've done over the years. And I think this would be a really great move to have him on board and hear his story. I mean, this is incredible what he's done. and I think he's got a lot to say.
Wow, exciting. Yes, we're looking forward to it.
So yeah, put us in touch with him for sure. Let's check that out. Here I want to say something as well. So there's an old saying: whenever you go to sea, there's a chance you won't come home. Have you ever heard that before?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I was sitting on the dock years ago. I was just learning how to sail, and I was going to bring somebody up my first sailboat, which was Decision, and I was going to sail up the Inside Passage up to Alaska. And my crew member at the time, their family was definitely not okay with it. And I was a bit distraught. And I started talking to a skipper who was a pilot boat captain who ran that route. And he looked at me. I was pretty young, I was like 24 years old. And that's what he said to me. He said, "Hey, son, you need to pay attention. Whenever you go to sea, there's a chance you won't come home. You need to be prepared for that trip." And it really stuck with me. And that I had a lot of responsibility as a captain. And when people came with me, I had to sort of think about their lives. And that's sort of, I know that the people on the Odyssey, they went through a huge vetting process, I'm sure. And they went through, as you're saying, a big training. Did you have any fear, not for yourself, but some of the others that you weren't able to look after?
There definitely was a few surprises. Yeah, we, Fusty and I think the other judges, Fusty was one of the judges. There were 4 of them in total. One was one of our Olympic gold medalists in rowing that won gold at the 2012 Olympics. Another person was a clinical psychologist, and the other was the captain of one of the sailing schools here in Cape Town, Cape Sailing Academy. And we had a super lineup of judges, and obviously Fusty, who knows me better than anyone else. But to answer your question, to vet these guys and to actually assess whether they would be okay, we also wanted to be able to not just be as strict to take the top sailor or to take the fittest or to take the strongest or the greatest athlete. So we made that as a conscious decision. Again, I wasn't involved in that, but when it came to that input, I was speaking to the 4 judges like over the lunch while they were deliberating. I would say, don't eliminate somebody just because of something that we'd perceive as an obvious.
Sure.
Little did we know. So, listen, one of the question was in the questionnaire, they did a digital sign up where it was very easy for them sending their video and also answering a few questions. And one of them was, "Can you swim?" And Fana answered yes. But he said, "You didn't give me more space to answer because I can swim, but with a life jacket."
Crafty.
Yeah, that's correct. I mean, yes. That's so smart.
That's right. It's good. So he had a lot of drive. He really wanted to do it. So imagine being him, want to take on this challenge. It's so far out of his comfort zone. He doesn't know how to swim. So incredible story. Yeah.
You've got it spot. So we did want guys that could at least do the basics. But I think probably if it comes down to hindsight, and I'll let Fusty answer that question, when it comes to what they definitely were looking for, I think it had to come to the person's personality.
Yeah, no, I think we were looking for somebody that could get along with Riaan, because firstly, you need a team player to do something like that.
Right.
And secondly, I know from my experience, I didn't have any experience. I knew that Riaan, knowing the ocean, I could trust him.
Sure.
So that's why Riaan also said, don't eliminate somebody just because of something that we perceive. Oh, we actually, all those people that had no experience, that had nothing. So I just wanted somebody that can work with Riaan. And then I knew that if that was the biggest hurdle, and if that was overcome,
there had to be a team player. They had to be able to sort of understand he's the skipper, he's in control of some things here. It can't be somebody who thinks they know what they're doing and we're going to do it all by myself. Right?
Oh, that would have been the worst person to. Yeah. You had need somebody to trust Riaan, because he was obviously the skipper.
Of course.
So yeah, that answered my question supposedly to you, Vasta, because you were one of the judges, and of course you were rooting for somebody who would get along with Riaan, because if somebody knows Riaan more than anybody else, it's you. So I think that's a very good basis to choose somebody to go with Riaan. So in line with this, how do people from anywhere in the world follow or watch this show?
Yeah, because all this time we were going, we want to watch it, we want to check this out. And now that we know that you've actually completed the journey, we'd love to find, one, a link for us so we can watch the show, and two, a link for our audience to find it. Is it possible?
Yeah, please could you try? So I won't be able to answer a yes or a no whether it's available in the Philippines, but if you could try for us on showmax.co.za. So of course, showmax with an X.
Okay.
.za, and then just see, and then just obviously it should give you a search option, and then just search for the Odyssey, and then see in which territories that they do make it available digitally. I do know that there's many regions in Europe. I do know that Australia, New Zealand, so Australasia area.
Okay.
Large parts of the state of the North America. So listen, please, would you look there, and then if you don't find it, just mail us again, just through the riaanmanser.com website, for anybody that would like to know. We own the rights to it, and we will be making it available on platforms. Currently it's licensed to them, to the Showmax group.
Okay.
But I think once the contract ends, we'll make it available through our channels.
Okay, far out. Right. Looking forward to watching that. Sounds like a great reality television show, one that I'd never heard of actually happening before. So cool.
It's really awesome. So let's move forward.
Yeah, so one of the things I always see is that you're pretty active at raising awareness, promoting causes, and creating charities. Tell us a little bit about No Food for the Lazy Man. It's an initiative that you started in preparation for your Iceland expedition, spending 8 days in a container, freezing your butt off, touring around South Africa. Tell us about No Food for the Lazy Man.
Yeah, No Food for Lazy Man was actually, you bring back some memories of a long time ago that I had an interview where people dig up all these things. You actually realize what you've done over these 20 years.
Funny, creative story.
You know what, I lived in this fridge, and it was just, again, an idea. We were heading for Iceland, and I thought, let me do something that would be double up as a support
training
for No Food for Lazy Man. And then also just a little bit of a precursor to us going to Iceland. So the normal trucks that you guys see that transport your frozen veggies or your ice cream, I was living in one of those. They had a cycle for me, a rowing machine, and then an area that was slightly warmer, it was maybe -10, for me to be able to sleep in. And so we did that, and was starting off at one of the rugby games, one of the provincial rugby games, which was a big affair in South Africa. So you're sitting there with 50,000 people who are coming out of the stadium, and people know me and they just want to chat. And we gave people a chance to come inside there. After a few beers, some guys were there inside that fridge in their underpants. So we then obviously
that's clothes.
Great. And then we drove all the way down the coast, the east coast of South Africa, which was special because we stopped at a few places that my trust actually does work. And then the trust is focused on entirely supplying schools with underprivileged schools specifically, with sporting equipment. We don't give financial support, so we absolutely veer away from trying to give a check or to hand over cash. We hand over sporting gear.
Nice.
All because I just believe what sport has done for many people.
Yeah.
You look in places, I could even say the Philippines, and you guys will agree with me. Look at some of your famous sports people. You look at people like in the boxing space, and those kids, when they were kids growing into men, were probably saved the life of being on the streets, if it wasn't for that sport. So I know sport is just that is the magic wand that needs to be waved.
100%.
Kids that
grounds a lot of people.
And then the point was, sorry, I just wanted to end off by saying that the No Food for Lazy Man, the name comes from the number plate that I had on my bicycle that I got from a slogan in West Africa. people in West Africa literally live by this. If you're lazy, you don't
Nice.
eat. They aren't harsh with each other, but that's the feeling between each other. If I can see Todd is being lazy, I'm allowed to tell you you can go hungry
Get
tonight.
it together, boy. You got to start working.
Yeah.
That's true.
So did living in a container van on ice help you adjust for Iceland?
No, not at all. That was just for razzmatazz. Come on, that was. I mean, the guys would still be able to pass me through a little vent that we had. They'd be able to pass me a cheeseburger and chips, and they'd be able to bring me something that I desired. I think I was even allowed to have a beer with dinner. So I was treated like a king, but in minus 25 degrees Celsius. No, listen, it definitely didn't. It did give me an idea of the cold. The freezer units, if you guys have ever been in one of those trucks, it was a 22-foot container, and the fridge unit
In
that's
the
at
back.
the edge near the cabin, that blows out this cold wind. I realized that when I was in that wind, I mean, any breathing or any moisture that my body released would just build up. So I realized that I learned something there just about movement of cold air freezes a lot quicker than like a stationary
wind chill factor. Wind
Exactly.
chill. Yeah. Hey, so thinking about your food for the lazy man, if our audience wants to help out here, how do they get involved? Is there somewhere they could go and get involved, help out with some charity, some funds, or maybe send some gear? How could somebody help out?
So this is what we do: is we absolutely stick to that idea, the original idea and the vision for our trust, where we said that we're looking for sporting equipment. So we appreciate the cash, and we appreciate for that to be a donation towards buying the sporting equipment. But if there are people and you have got influence with a sporting business, a sporting agency, please bully them, pressurize them that they could fill a container and send it to us. We absolutely take that as serious as me feeding my family, what we do with that equipment when it lands here. We also want to see results. But the bottom line, first, is just mentioning is get onto the website, the riaanmanser.com website. Just send us a mail. Tell us what your feeling is, and if it's you want to give $5, we would then work out what we'd buy with that $5 and be able to show you what we did. But reach out, because I think people listening now realize also just in the adventurous space how sport played something that major part in getting them to that adventurous space. When we were in Dubai, all those people were sporty to some degree, and they have to thank sport for their ability today.
Yeah, I agree. So Janet was actually a big tennis star here in the Philippines, and when she was a little girl, really, she was a national champion tennis player, and then she eventually became a endurance athlete.
Tennis was my first love.
Yeah. I started wrestling when I was in second grade, so both of us were very sport oriented, and it's what grounded us and gave us something to really focus on in life.
Yes.
And we're very grateful for. And when we're in the Philippines, there really isn't a lot for the scholastic system. We get a few basketball courts, and that's
it's always basketball here. It's big.
Being a wrestler, I don't like it, but it's really a powerful thing for our kids and for our communities to have sport and something to sort of work with competition and work a lot of things out. It's good for us as people. Yeah, so we're into it.
Yeah, so I think that's a good way, to give opportunities to kids, to people through sports, and donating gears and equipment. I think that's really a nice way. So you know where it's going.
Okay, so all you CEOs at Nike, did you hear that? We're gonna send it all over to the RiaanManser.com. Okay. Yeah, so that's a great charity. We're proud of it, and let's hope we can get some people to go help you out there and help the kids out, far out.
I just want to touch on the point of Janet being the tennis star. It's such a pity she didn't carry on, because you guys would have had like a 80-foot catamaran instead of the boat you have now if she just carried on playing and winning tournaments around the world.
No, this is the thing. Riaan.
I think she could probably get back into it. You know, we run into these guys while traveling all over the world, and these guys come up, oh yeah, I play tennis. And, yeah, you want to play my wife? Come on, man, let's go.
He would always tell me, it's like, okay, I'm going to bet on my wife, play tennis. I didn't even know that he was setting me up. So like, what?
Yeah, I mean, guys who tell me they're tennis players.
It's like, oh my God, Todd. But anyway,
I've already got some money in my pocket over all these bets, so I think she should get back in the sport.
I miss it. I truly miss it. But
that's almost on this. That's almost on the same level as me making my girlfriend pay for rent in my house. So.
You have your way.
We're creative. Yeah. Okay. So far out. Another thing. So you've been pretty active in promoting causes. Some of the other things I've seen you active in were the Sunflower Fund. You were an ambassador of hope there, which I think that it would be nice if you could tell us a little bit about that, but also some other things about some children and the children of South Africa and their plight for hunger. There's been some things you've been involved in. I even see you carry a bag of cement around for 7 days doing something, not quite sure there, but tell us about some of your other charities and how some people can get involved and some of the things you're involved with now.
So Todd, the Sunflower Fund, we actually incidentally did an awesome webinar this morning with them, and just had a couple of speakers, and just more on awareness. People are a bit webinared out, I think, when it comes to fundraising. So we try to keep that on just more of a engagement platform. I've been an ambassador for the Sunflower Fund for quite a while now, and it was even before James was born, and they look after a registry that has people and their genetics available for stem cell donorship, which in the olden days used to be called bone marrow transplants, and scared everybody away.
Right.
And this stem cell donorship is actually so it really is geographically linked. So if you come,
genetics,
definitely so much. So Todd, your history and your ancestors are probably
Icelandic,
500.
Right?
We'd have to go back to where they were originally to find that genetic to save a child's life. So essentially, what happened was I became friends with this one family. Their son's name is Luca. Adele is his mom. And Luca was, I think, about 7 at the time, and yes, there was just no hope. They weren't getting a donor for him. Now, he's got German heritage. He didn't have a big enough pool to be able to get a match from. And it just reaching out to this family and to actually the Sunflower Fund, I just realized how stuck they are. They're looking for finance, of course, but they're looking for the Todd and the Janet and the Riaan to come and just take a blood sample, test it, see what the genetics are. It costs roughly 2,000 Rand, which is, man, it's $120, So, and then you're on that registry for life, and you could change a child's, you could save a child's life, and you literally save their life because you're a man for that child. So anyway, long story short is just that I became friends with them, and it was hard for me also because I grew close to Luca. I watched him go through ups and downs, see him recover, see him take dives again. And Luca's healthy today. He's not in the clear, but we're talking about like 6 years later, he's doing well. We still don't have a donor for him. We absolutely are trying to get people to help. His immune system already takes a tumble, and the older he gets, it's just going to become more complicated. So we're hoping to find a donor for him. The Sunflower Fund is just entirely that. They ask us to go and register and to become a donor. So I look after them. The stories don't always end where Lucas are. A lot of the children don't make it, and it is gut-wrenching. I mean, I feel emotional now when I just talk about it. But that's not why we talk about the Sunflower Fund. We talk about hope. So when I'm an ambassador, I'm ambassador for hope, because we don't want somebody to join, again, this pity Olympics and just say, everybody has their problem. But if you can go and become a person on this registry, I beg you to please become one.
Okay.
They're global. In the States, you're lucky because they do it automatically, where I don't know what the situation would be in Philippines, but the States is probably, along with Canada, in a very, very fortunate position is that nearly everybody goes onto that registry.
Wow, good on you, man. Yeah, I didn't know that. I didn't really understand how that all worked, but I've got a bit of an understanding here. So a lot of times when we're born or they're a young age, they take a blood sample, and is that how it's done? It's a genetic ID,
Yes.
so they can then use that. You know, we're usually told that so we know what vaccines to give you because of this, that, or the other thing, because you might be predisposed of this genetically, but we've never been told that story here in the Philippines.
Yeah.
So, and I
Stem
think,
cells,
yeah,
it's the stem cells that they harvest, and then the laboratory method now of harvesting those stem cells is so easy. It literally is a blood transfusion if we could keep it as simple as possible. But I would, if Todd, you were a match for James, if he had leukemia, then what would happen is that we would just have you give us some blood, and then we would harvest those stem cells and we would feed it to James, but we would have to absolutely, first of all, clear out with radiation and some treatment all the cancer that he has in his body. But with your blood and stem cells we've harvested, it would save his life.
that's great to hear. Yes, I'm just really learning about stem cell sort of therapies. And I'm hearing it's quite powerful. You can even use stem cell therapies to recover from knee injuries and physical injuries.
Yeah.
And it works really well.
Almost
Here.
about
Yeah.
Wow.
everything.
Interesting.
So, my next question is, we know that we've touched on this previously, but in one of your videos, you said getting married, having children, putting some money in the bank for your pension, that maybe wasn't sitting very comfortably with me. So I believe you're way past that now because you're happily married to Basti and you have lovely James and a little bundle on
And
the
we
way.
got another one on the way.
So,
Whoa.
do you have plans in the future to bring Basti, James, and your little bundle on a family adventure? And what would it be?
What's ahead?
What's ahead?
Yeah.
So I'm busy with the project right now, which is something that has probably been created just out of this 2020 horror show that we're all busy living. We take 5 matrics, which are senior learners. I don't know what you'd call them in the States or but they'd be senior students before they go to like a college. The A levels, you'd call it in the in UK. 5 of these guys win. Only South African students can win the chance to go to Antarctica with me next year for a week.
Yeah, I was
So
reading
they go
about
in
this.
January with me. They're in the process now of applying. It's a environmental project, so their application forms talk directly to what they believe the solution is for this planet. Because one thing that I've been battling with, and I know you guys have spent time on the oceans and we're just seeing the plastic. I mean, what
Oh
we
my
saw
God,
in
yeah.
the Pacific.
Horrible.
I've
We just
sailed through garbage pits. It's freaky. I've taken videos and I'm thousands of miles offshore and sailed through garbage pits as far as you can see. It's shameful.
Yeah.
And, I took off when I was 26 years old to sail around the world. And I've watched it change for sure. I mean, I saw the pollution pick up in 10 years. I mean, it just totally changed. You could go to I remember when I sailed into Tahiti. Tahiti's known as tropical paradise. And I'd walk these beaches in the middle of nowhere and you were up to your knees in plastic.
No, it's exactly that. When we talk about that, we could sit around and let's call us the privileged few that have a bit of more resources than the average Joe.
Yeah.
Now, and we know that the bulk of any of the pollution in the ocean comes from inland, from rivers, and that's the shocking fact. But the one thing that I also felt was that a lot of adults are talking about these sustainability goals, the UN, the charters that they put together, and it's all by adults. Now, I'm not in any way saying that Greta Thunberg and her approach and how dare you.
Yeah. I'm with you.
I'm just saying that can we talk to senior intelligent children that absolutely are passionate about this idea of that, hey, listen, I'd actually like a pretty clean beach when I go and walk, like you just mentioned, not ankle deep in plastic. But I feel that for a lot of them, when I say to a 17-year-old, 18-year-old, listen, got to save the planet, buddy, That guy is far too intimidated. He doesn't show it because he nods and says, yes, we're going to save the planet. But what I am asking him, outside of the pimples and girlfriends, which is his focus right now, it's something that's going way above his head. We've got to let the kids get into a conversation where they realize there's actually something more tangible. So, and not laboring it, is that we allow these kids to enter this competition by just engaging with us and saying to us, what would you do in your town of Butterworth or in Kwanabushle, or what would you do in your little village that you think if 10 of you did it, if 100 of you did it, it would have a huge impact. And the submissions are incredible, man. These kids are really enthusiastic and want to see a change. And we're going to take 5 of these special kids who probably haven't even seen snow in their lives to the most rock-hard ice continent on the planet.
Yeah. Well, this is strange times for this conversation as well. And, you know, I really believe it's a double-edged sword that we have to look at this. We have to look for solutions, but we also have to look at other things as well about our economy. And, you know, like you're saying, the Greta and her story that, you know, we don't fly anymore and we don't eat meat, and we can't go that extreme. And we have to really look at everything as a double-edged sword, and which I think is quite funny to bring it up right now. And we're talking about the whole COVID scenario, and they're talking about all this, it's so great for the environment. But one of the things Janet and I really notice is like, oh my God, the plastic that has just been put up everywhere. There's plastic everywhere. In every single store, everywhere we go, there's plastic. I'm like, they used to make, in our town, it was illegal to sell plastic bags.
Yes.
And now we're like, wow, look at the plastic. So there's I don't know if we're looking
irony.
Yeah, a bit of an irony. Yeah. But anyway, so I think this is great. We need to get the kids out there thinking, and but we need to think about real solutions, and we think about our economy as well. But yeah.
Sounds like the thing that you talk about now is that it is not difficult, man. You need to do the uncomfortable thing, is speak to your shop owner and say, listen, please, man, could I have a discussion with you just about this idea of shopping bags being given to your customers? And then engage with them. You don't have to tell him that you're better than them. You don't have to show, because this is the divide that happens, is we're on either side. Either you believe in it or you don't believe it. And then you begin to have an argument and a standoff with somebody. If you're a person who's shopping at your little superette, we encourage people to engage with the shop owner and to say, is there a reason you give the plastic bags? Because that's a start then, because Todd, it will be 2, 3, 4 people. Soon you'll be converting that guy or that woman, that shop owner, into your side of the argument. You know, we live in a very polarized world, and even things that are logical, like too much plastic on the beaches, just go over people's heads because you're a Republican and I'm a Democrat, or whatever their stance is. It's just they won't listen. And the point is that I've realized with my conversations, I know that at times I felt so helpless. But 10 years later, conversations I've had with Coca-Cola, and some of them on a international level, and then also first now we're looking what Tetra Pak is doing now. You must see the businesses are taking it more seriously. Tetra Pak is creating packaging. The biggest packaging company in the world, of course, are creating packaging that is entirely biodegradable. Entirely. No product of theirs will leave their factory that is not biodegradable.
Yeah, so that's a step in the right direction, and I think we're all a little bit more aware of it. And this project you're doing in Antarctica, what's it called? The Metrics? Is that the college? What is it?
Yeah, that's what we call our senior years. So that would be somebody that's about to go to college. So
matriculate. It's a short for the word matriculate.
Okay, so this is when you've passed your SATs, you're qualified. This is your year before you're about to get involved.
Finish your school.
That's right. What Fasti is saying is right. So it's Matrix, MATRICS, in Antarctica, and that's also .coza. So .coza, and also all the social media handles of that Matrix in Antarctica.
Well, keep us posted on that. What are you going to do while you're there? Is there any sort of production? Are you going to have any camera crews with you putting some media together on this?
Oh, we're not going to be overly ambitious on this. We're doing a 90-minute feature story on this. We don't know what we're going to get from these 5 winners. So the judges have to go through them. Stellenbosch University, one of our prestigious universities, Stellenbosch, and they're going to be selecting the top 5. We just presume that they're going to be colorful characters. We presume they're going to be people who are going to tell a backstory that's going to inspire all of us, because as explorers or travelers, we are a little bit closer to the idea of going to Antarctica than somebody who comes from a township, for example, or somebody who's never ever even thought of traveling to somewhere cold. So we are making a production of it. The amazing thing is that I just got off a call today with National Geographic, who are internationally very keen on the story. We're just trying to work out how to make it an international product. So probably next year we'd be including the UK, Australia, and the US as part of that senior students going to Antarctica. But we definitely have production ambitions. Of course we do.
Wow. That's huge. Just
Far out.
Congratulations.
Good job.
Yeah.
Another great
Wow.
thing.
So, speaking of great things, you hold 2 Guinness World Records and 4 world firsts. Has this always been part of your planning when putting together the next adventure?
No, I don't think so. I sincerely don't believe it was always any goal orientated with making records. I think, let's just be honest, while Fust is here, also to say that the road to Hawaii was the worst timing ever. Todd, you please just go look at the time that we decided to row. You guys will know, as Janet, I think if you guys check the records, it was the worst July in history for the number of hurricanes in that month of July in history.
Right.
We had Hurricane Frank come so close to us that the winds were blowing. That boat was blowing sideways. I mean, how we had to turn the rudder to try to keep her upright. We made that Guinness World Record because of those hurricanes coming past us.
You got pushed there. Got pushed there and nearly died doing it.
I mean, we rode so much. We were so competitive. Once we realized we were doing well, I mean, we rode again the long days. We really rode 14 hours at times, non-stop, all because we saw those kilometers click over. But the thing was that with wind helping us, those extra 2 knots or so, we could actually then row at 5 knots or 6 knots, and do it comfortably because we kept the momentum. And the swell was also, as you guys know as sailors, is sometimes just have that 3 foot or that 4 foot swell just helping you surfing wave after wave. And if we kept rowing, we easily did it. So we really put in big effort, and that record came in 39 days. Guys with from 4 big strapping guys that broken the record a month before us, 4 of them that also rowed like nearly 20 hours a day to try and break that record. So, but Janet, to answer your question, no, it wasn't the goal before. I think what happens sometimes, you speak to successful athletes. We have a guy like Wade van Niekerk who broke a long-standing 400 meters record on a track athlete, and he said it was never ever his original goal to be able to aim for breaking that record. He just loved running, just loved doing it.
Yeah.
And I feel this. Yeah, I feel the same thing. It's just I did want to. I was competitive. I did look out for. Fusty knows that I always said, listen, has somebody done it? The opportunity to go to the South Pole or to climb Kilimanjaro, or even, Janet, you know what it's like in the elation of climbing to the top of the world. I just felt at the time that's something I must attempt a little bit later in my career, while I've still got this energy. Try do things that people haven't done. It was ambitious, and I've been lucky that I've pulled off some of them.
Wow, I can relate, like what you said, that it has never been a goal. You just love doing it. So yeah, it's the same thing with me. I've never crossed my mind. Even I started mountaineering after being a tennis player. I started climbing mountains when I was younger, but it never really crossed my mind to be able to climb Mount Everest one day. So I was just playing tennis, and then all of a sudden, next time around, I was on top of the world. So
it's not that easy.
No,
it makes it sound easy.
I know.
Yeah, so go ahead.
Those images, when you showed those images in Dubai, also just seeing you, and it's very different, when you meet people and you can chat around, a couple of photos, but then you see the people on stage and talking about it. Yes, it just gives you a new perspective, eh?
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Hey, so you've written 3 autobiographies about your experiences around Africa on my bicycle, around Iceland on inspiration, and around Madagascar on my kayak. Do you guys have any other books, like something about your guys' journey together? You got any books in the making? Anything coming in the future?
Todd, we signed an agreement with a company in New York. We for the documentary and for the book deal. They just sort of held us up, and we got caught up in other projects like the wedding and rowing to Hawaii. But we had the deal, and the deal didn't work out. It was unfortunate. I think we weren't married in the same vision for what we wanted. But essentially the point is that we think probably that Road to New York will be an exceptional book. We just haven't found the time. I mean, if I want to write a book that I really, really bury myself into, it's a super emotional book. I mean, it will be people like yourselves who are a couple and get caught in confined spaces and really some the horror parts of your relationship. That's where we were, and it's not easy even to talk about it.
It's something. It's like pulling skeletons out of the closet. It's not something that's that easy to talk about.
Exactly, and that's just I want to find that space. I when you mention that now again, I realize it's something we have to do. A lot of people ask us. I think it will be a probably 2 or 3 notches up from Eat, Pray, Love.
For us.
Wow.
So, on the books that you've your 3 autobiographies, how does our audience find them? How do they get a hold of your books?
Yeah, I think you can find them all on Amazon. I think that's definitely a platform. I think if you just Google those titles, you'll be able to find the retailers. I think the digital guys definitely would be able to ship them. But also, just again, please, man, riaanmanser.com.
Yeah.
Just engage. We'll find a way to get them to you. I think
but they're all on Kindle or Amazon. You can get them there. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, hey, I think we're running out of time a little bit. We've really stretched it out today.
Yeah.
What a great conversation.
That's really nice. Really nice.
You guys.
we got breakfast now.
Yeah, it's just around the corner.
Soon.
What a lovely time. Thanks for sharing all your great stories with us. I feel very proud to have gotten to know you a little bit better. I hope that you and I or all of us can get together. Maybe we can do a family adventure together one day. Let's stay in touch. Let's stay in touch. Maybe we can hook up sometime here in the near future. But thank you so much for joining us and sharing your life and your stories. Thank you so much.
Riaan, Basti, thank you. It brings warm memories and warm feelings to be talking to you guys again. And really thank you for your time.
Congratulations on the next couple months. Tell us about that story. We'd like to hear, on the big day. Do you know if it's a boy or a girl yet?
It's a boy, another boy.
Boys are hard. I don't know. You remember you said kids are hard? Boys are even harder.
So now we're looking forward. It would have been amazing. We would have been in Dubai. I think all of us would have been in Dubai last month. I think.
Yeah.
I know.
Some action going on there. Right on.
Would have been. But listen, we also appreciate. Thanks.
Thank you.
It's nice for us to be able to just share the story and especially like-minded people. We hope the people who listen also just enjoyed it. Reach out if there's any more, and if there's a follow-up. I think especially with like Fanafakile and with the Matrix in Antarctica, let's also see where that goes. So please,
let's do it again. We'd love to get together again here in the future. Put us in touch with some of your associates and partners, and let's stay in touch.
We will.
Yeah. Bye, guys. Thank you.
All right.
Bye.
Take care.